Bjergsen and Doublelift are no longer in the LCS. We are looking for a new main character. A couple of names that we could throw out, and I don't think there's any wrong answers, but there might be only one right answer. 2024 power rankings as well. Can Mark save the LCS? Lots of changes in 2024. Episode 148 of the Clown Fiesta podcast starts now with Blue Jay and JNT250. We're back, Jinter. We're back. Lots of things changed, and maybe I'm a little more fired up than you are, but I am so fired up for the LCS. It's go time, baby.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for the season to start. That we've been blessed with the LEC starting 1 week early, as it always does, which normally kind of gets me into the mood for these types of things.
No, doesn't hit the same for me. Okay, who's a new main character? Because for years, Doublelift, Bjergsen, right? And stop me if I'm wrong here. It was always Bjergsen up until Doublelift got replaced, right? Once Doublelift got replaced on TSM, then it kind of became Doublelift, yeah?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, from when Bjergsen entered the LCS to basically season 7, TSM was running the entire LCS during that time, and Bjergsen was the best player on that team. So it kind of made sense for him to be the face of the LCS. And, there was the whole drama with Doublelift moving from TSM to Team Liquid. And then Team Liquid sort of took over the LCS, winning 4 championships in a row, dominating season 8, 9, and half of 10, sort of.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
But then,
But
okay, after that, now we're in like a totally new phase, right? It's actually been years now. It seems like it's crazy. It's been 5 years since it was like prime Doublelift and whatnot. But the main character was still kind of Doublelift, but like, and he came back last year. Even Bjergsen as well. They both were reunited, and there was like that main character story. Now they're both gone again. They're both gone. There's no sign that they're coming back anytime soon. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? We need a new main character, and I think there's a couple people that people instantly think of, being Blabber and Jojopyun. And then there's like, to me, I would argue that NRG is kind of like the main character team, just because they were so shit last year. No one expected them to do anything. They just kept proving everyone wrong. But I don't think there's enough longevity to say like our main character is a team of NRG who had one split and they one small Worlds run. So to me, it's between Blabber and Jojopyun. What do you think about that? Is there any like Palafox contracts that are thrown in?
I mean, I think you can definitely throw contracts into the mix there. I'll give you one, and it's a fan favorite of mine, so I don't know if that's giving it a bit away, but I feel like Insanity is one of
Sanity?
those. Insanity is that kind of a person to where if he performed well enough, he could easily be one of the faces of the LCS. I mean, this guy was a player that a lot of people got invested in when he first entered the league on Immortals, and then people were calling for him to come back to the league after he had kind of not been around in the league for about a year and a half. And when he finally got his spot on TSM, now Shopify Rebellion, he was the best player on that team and led that team to their first playoff appearance after not making playoffs in. They didn't make playoffs at all in 2022. Is that correct?
I don't know.
I think so. Yes, I think so. Yes.
Okay, so I see the appeal to Insanity. We are big time Insanity fans on this podcast, but like, isn't that just like the lighter version of the CLG slash NRG guys, like the guys that were there, went back down to academy, came back, but then they actually won the split? Like, isn't that just more of a?
Well,
You
I
know what I'm
think
saying?
I think the whole point is that it's up for grabs. It's up for grabs. There is no. I don't think there's a person you could definitively say right now is the face of the LCS. If there was, then if they were, their face would be plastered all over the hype content and getting ready for 2024. Like you would know who the face of the league is if there was one. I guess is my point. So
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like
not.
a lot of teams and players themselves can kind of push for that in this upcoming year to change that narrative or to make it their own narrative.
Yeah, for me, it's just between JoJo and Blabber. No offense to the NRG guys, no offense to Insanity. It's just not them to me. If we're talking main character, I'm gonna go with Blabber. Honestly, I think it's very much. I think the story, or the biggest story in the LCS, should be Blabber chasing GOAT status, because that was a lot of the talk before summer. Going into finals, was people thought Cloud9 was going to run with it, and Blabber is just starting to add more and more titles to himself. To me, he should have won MVP last year. I know people are going to hate me for that. Um, Regardless of whether he was MVP or not, he had an MVP worthy season. And then you got JoJo, his teammate, who was the MVP and also had a great year. Well, I should say great split, right? Like he was kind of down in spring and then, really ramped up in summer. So like, I feel like JoJo's the new toy that a lot of people will say he's their main character. But for me, I think the LCS's face should be Blabber. making the push to catch Doublelift and Bjergsen in trophies, whether it be MVPs or whether it be title. I don't even remember how many LCS titles does he have. Like three,
He has 4,
four.
right? Is that uh
Something's telling me it was going to be four if they won summer, but then they lost.
it was
I
spring
can't
20,
remember.
there was spring 2020, there was spring 2022, and no, not spring 2022. That was EG, sorry. There was summer 2022, and then they won in 2023, didn't they? In spring? Yeah, they have 4.
If you say so, I can't remember. You know, this is not my memory. Is not my. No, it's just not. And how many MVPs does Blabber have? Is it just one or is it like two?
I don't know, 2 maybe. That's
So, admittedly, regardless, he's got room to go to catch Doublelift and Bjergsen, but like I
yeah,
do think it's
he's
very doable.
two MVPs.
It's very doable to me, and you could also argue that he could have been three because of last summer. Although you shouldn't, maybe you shouldn't get like awarded for almost winning MVP. Maybe I'm being a little bit too generous there. But the point is, I think that's the most interesting storyline, and so that's what I think the LCS should go with. He's my main character. Do you think a lot of people are going to disagree and say Jojo Pyun?
I mean, maybe you know, you look at it from JoJo's perspective, and he basically took over the LCS from the minute that he got there. You know, I know when he initially did join the Evil Geniuses roster, Danny was in his second split. The focus was still kind of on Danny, especially after his monster playoffs that he had, where he got that like basically penta against 100 Thieves that almost won
Yeah.
EG that series, which would have taken them to Worlds at that point. You know, they didn't make Worlds that year; they did the following year off the back of the great play from JoJo Pyun and Inspired. So you know, when you look at it from that perspective, you know, if he comes to the league and continues his success on Cloud9 that he's had so far, he's kind of got that similar storyline to Bjergsen going, to where once he touched down in the league, he's become a top player in his role and has been a top player ever since he's entered the league. So I think from that perspective, you could definitely make the argument of JoJo. And that's exactly why I said from the jump that it's up for grabs. Like, if there was a person whom everyone agreed upon was the face of the LCS, then we would know who that is and we would see their face all over Reddit, Twitter, videos, content, whatever it may be. But there's
Well, maybe
not.
some of that's still to come, though, right? Maybe
Yeah.
like within the next week, we might get a bunch of it, and maybe we might see who the LCS thinks is the face. I just wanted to clear something up because I lost audio for like 2 seconds. Were you saying that the Danny play happened in summer?
Summer, not you, you're thinking of a different one. You're
I
thinking of
thought
the Jinx Penta one. I'm talking about the Trist one that he had on.
again, I lost audio for a second, so I was thinking of the Penta. That's why I thought you were talking about the Jinx Penta. Okay, it was something else.
No, the Tristana one. It
Gotcha.
wasn't
Okay.
technically a Penta, but it was like unofficial Penta.
I think this year what we should do is we should continue to pretend like there's a big rift going on between Blabber and JoJo. Like they just have the biggest ego, and each one of them just keeps stealing kills from each other, so that they could be seen as like the actual, you know what I'm saying, the real MVP. That's the storyline that we might have to go with if Cloud9 starts running away with things because yeah, they're looking pretty damn good. We'll have to make up our own storylines about Cloud9.
And I mean, I guess the last thing to say about this is there's a ton of young players that are entering the space also. You know, you're going to have Masu, who's going to be the AD carry on FlyQuest. Everybody's hyping him up, and he's basically slated to be the carry of that team.
Yep.
And if this guy comes into the league, starts dominating, it could be him. You know, 100 Thieves throwing out a very young roster. You got other teams like Shopify Rebellion who are on the rise. You know, they don't have young players per se, but they have, you know, fresh faces, if we can call it that.
Yeah. The LCS doesn't get a lot of like uh super young rookies that come out and are instantly MVP. Like JoJo's rare, but
Jojo and Danny were the exceptions,
when we do get
and
those
Bjergsen, I
players, the
guess.
fans really rally around them. So you're not wrong. You're not
Yeah.
wrong that like things could change. And like you said at the very start of the show, it's up for grabs. Like I feel like it's such an opportunity for the LCS players to really build their brand this year and push that they're the guy that people need to be following um for this year.
Like
Uh
I know you seem to have like you seem to have your opinion very locked on that it's going to be Blabber, but like might I point out that Blabber has been in, like, if we want to call it his prime, like Blabber's sort of been in his prime, you know, since about 2020, or if we want to, you know, 2020 to 2021. Like Danny came in, played basically 2.5 splits, and he was arguably the most popular player in the league that wasn't named Bjergsen and Doublelift, and
maybe.
that was during Blabber's best performances. That's when Blabber was the best jungler in the league up until, you know, Inspired showed up in 2022.
Yeah, you might be right.
So
Y-
I think there's plenty of opportunity for not only the established LCS veterans that we currently have, your contracts, maybe your Palafox, your Insanity, your Core JJ, your Impact, but there's also all these young faces, and you give the fans 1 year of consistent high level play, and they're gonna run with it.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm just speaking from my perspective. For me, main characters absolutely blabber. Um, but yeah, like you said, there's lots of people that people can get excited for. So yeah. Before we move on, want to remind people to subscribe. It's the first reminder of the year, guys. Make sure to hit those sub buttons. That's the easiest way to help the podcast. Also, remember to hit the like button, leave a comment. We do read them all. We will be reading the comments. We got a long year ahead of us. Stick with us. We plan to do our episodes still Sunday night. Yeah, Jinther? That's our
I
plan.
believe so. Yeah, going to be later though. I think we were doing them at 7 p.m. EST. Obviously because the matches were getting played on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But now with the matches moving back to Saturday, Sunday, we're going to probably go live a couple hours after the conclusion of LCS. If we want to put a time on it as of now, I would
We
say
probably
around
shouldn't though.
11.
Like we don't know.
Well, just to give people an idea, probably around
Okay.
11 p.m. latest midnight on the East Coast. So that'll be around 8, 9 o'clock on the West Coast. But we'll keep you updated, and we'll definitely figure things out kind of once we get into the flow of the season. Because as you'll hear in a hot second, there's a lot of changes coming to the LCS.
Yeah, subject to change, lots of changes. Remember, hit the sub button, hit the like button, all that stuff. Okay, let's talk. Markz, new commissioner, a bunch of fucking changes coming in. Where are we starting with this one, Jinter?
Well, I figured we start with the LCS address video that was posted to
Okay.
the LCS YouTube channel roughly about a week ago now. Obviously, when Markz was announced to be the new LCS commissioner about a month ago, he did say that that all this was purely an announcement, and that there was going to be a lot more information that comes out in the coming month. Guess what? We are now in that coming month of January. Almost 5 days before the start of the LCS season, and there's a lot to dive into. So I feel like we'll start by with just going through a quick rundown of what was said in that LCS address video, and then we'll sort of go from there.
Let's just go one by one because it'll be too messy. Just go one by one and we'll talk about what do you think is the most interesting thing?
Well, what do I think is the most interesting thing?
Yeah.
Um,
What was like when you
is
heard him say
it
it in
would
the
it
video,
would
you
it,
were like, fuck yes.
is it bad to say that I thought the NACL stuff was more interesting than the LCS stuff?
Wow, really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't think we should start with that. So
I okay, so for me, it was the game time. I thought that was like when he said that, or not game time, but in between game time, when they said that they're gonna try to cut that in half. And Jinter, I've gone on about this for years about how the broadcast is too long, it's too difficult to consume. Now you're down to 8 teams, so you're only gonna have 4 games. Apparently, you're supposed to be half of the time in between games. It's not that big of a pain in the ass anymore to watch the LCS. I think that is so underrated. I think it's like you could sit down, watch 3, maybe 4 hours of a broadcast. That's like watching a football game or a hockey game or something like that. Whereas, like before, LCS was 5 hours. It was long. Like, you're asking people to take way too much time out of their day. Not to mention, it's also on weekends now. I just think that is the scheduling changes as far as how quick the games go, and now they're back on weekends is so huge. I think that is massive.
yeah, I mean it's no secret. I've said multiple times on our podcast that I don't watch any of the in between of games. Like I used to watch the analyst desk all the time because I think towards the beginning of LCS they did a really good job with the analyst desk and sort of providing insightful, commentary on what went, breaking down the game prior. But I just think that kind of got pushed to the side when we sort of moved towards franchising. It kind of just became more of a traditional like commercials and showing like pre-recorded pieces of content. Like I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of that. So for me, when it was between LCS games, I would just get up and go do something else, and then I'd come back 15 to 20 minutes later. And there, you are right in saying that the people who do want to watch the product, they don't want to have to watch the product with like 15 to 20-minute breaks in between every single game. You want to be able to
Especially
watch the
casual viewers, right?
exactly.
Like
You want to be able to
everyone is
watch the
us.
games in a nice
Yeah.
flow where you watch a
Yeah.
game, then the next game starting shortly after, and you just get right into it. And I think, especially with the changes coming to the LCS, that is the biggest one. Is the sort of the overarching changes that they're making to the broadcast, where they are trying to cut down on transition times and keep the content and the analyst desk or analyst lounge, whatever they're calling it these days, pre and post show. The middle is typically going to be filled with the post game interviews and a commercial break, and I think that's fine. But the fact that we don't have to necessarily wait 20 to sometimes even 25 minutes when there's delays between each games is a big plus.
Yeah, for sure. I could not agree more. That news really got me going. I thought that was great. It's funny because what I used to say, my bad idea that I don't even know if I'd call it a bad idea. My take used to be that they should have two setups and they should rotate them so that all the time when the players are like hooking up their gear, like that time is less, is not taking up so much time. But the idea of getting two stage setups is really difficult. Like how are you going to rotate them in or whatever? Like that's a big pain in the ass. And I thought it'd be too expensive to do, and then they renovated the whole place when Valorant went in. And I was like, couldn't they have just spent some of that money on making there be more setups? Instead, they put the champ selects, they're pre-recorded. That is a big part in helping things move forward. I don't know about you. I'm not gonna miss champ select just for regular season games, by the way. I'm not gonna miss champ select being like it's totally fine that it's pre-recorded. I think that's great. And you could have the live reactions from the casters and the fans watching as the champ select goes on, but it'll just be while the players are setting up.
Yeah,
That's
I guess
that's
for
such good news.
those who haven't seen the video yet, just to quickly, if you don't really understand what we're saying by that, is the aim for the broadcast is to not even, as the players are coming up on stage, the champion select is already going to be completed in the back rooms, and they're going to be doing their tech check while then the broadcast is discussing the draft that had went on X number of minutes prior. So I think, in addition to the shorter transition times, changing up this format where they have the draft happen in the back rooms will also, I think, help that. And, if I had to guess, unfortunately, it's probably going to mean some delays and mishaps in the first couple weeks, but that's natural and that we expect that. And I
Yeah.
think at the same time, this is going to be a very experimental period in the LCS. So I would urge fans to not jump down their throat when things can and will go awry.
Another thing too, this is just a small thing that I just want to touch on just because they mentioned it in the video, but the interactivity via voting, whether that be on Twitch or on YouTube or whatever, what they're gonna do, like I think that's really big too. I want to say it's big. I guess I should wait and see what they have planned for it, but I've always thought that it's a good idea for like not everyone gets up in between all the games. For the people that want to get up, use the restroom, go get something to eat, fine. But for the people that are just hanging out, give them something to interact with. So I think that's a really good idea as well. So it's the people that are just vibing, waiting for the next game, have something to do. I think that's a good idea as well. I'm interested
Yeah,
to see where they go with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one and only concern that I have for the voting aspect, whether that's, they did say that they'll be using that for player interviews and other things. I just wonder if that's just going to turn into like a bit of a shit show or like just meme voting or even like, especially when for the player interview section, like if you have a team, like let's just take, I don't even know, let's take Shopify, for example. Like you have your choices to pick between interviews. You have Fake God, Boogie, Insanity, Zazel, and Bvoy. I would have to imagine that people are going to want Insanity doing the interview almost 9 times out of 10. Not only because he's a fun personality, because he's a fluent English speaker and he seems like a pretty like funny stand-up guy. So
It's
like,
good news to me. So here's what I felt like what was happening before was it felt like they like the LCS broadcast felt like they needed to give like different time to different players to like push their stories, whereas like in all honesty there's some players that the fans just don't want to hear from. Like there's just some people that just don't give a good interview. And so now like yeah, it sucks for the players that don't get picked for the interview, but if you could have gotten Sven to do all the interviews last year, you would have taken that. The product would be better. It's a better stream. So I feel like what that does is it incentivizes players to be more open and to try to be entertaining. At the end of the day, it's an entertainment product. You need to try to be entertaining and to speak your mind and to be like that's how you're going to be the one that gets to grow your brand because the fans are always going to vote for you to do interviews. So that's just I think that's just teaching the players that like yeah, it matters. Your personality matters, so try to be interesting at least a little bit.
I mean, I guess I can see that perspective, but I just think it'll eventually turn into something where you're only going to be having you're going to have 2 players from every team giving the interviews. Like
Maybe.
that's just the worry that I have is like, okay, if Shopify is playing, well, likely the only players that we're going to want giving the interview are Insanity and Zazel. And if it's Immortals, likely the only players that we're going to want giving the interview is Ole, Tactical, or Armeo. Like, I just think that the fan voting is going to especially hurt a lot of the non-speaking or non-English speaking players in the LCS.
Yeah, it might.
Because
It
because
that is true.
I do think to a certain extent, especially when you are a foreign player that does come into the LCS, the interviews is a big thing that can help get those players, fandom, themselves, and also, get them a little bit out of their comfort zone when it comes to speaking English and all those various things. So that's one of my worries with that whole fan voting type of thing.
I think it's fair to worry about that. I don't see a world where the LCS completely ignores some of like the lower personality people, the people that are a little bit more timid. I feel like they'll try to find ways to integrate them. I just think before it felt like the LCS was like, well, this player hasn't done an interview yet, so we feel like we got to get them in at some point, and then they get in and they just don't really have anything to say, and then the fans are like,
Yeah, I guess my thoughts would be that I think the interview should just be purely gameplay and team focus, and should have nothing to do with it being an entertaining product and whatnot. Like the entertaining product type things can be saved for the pieces of content that they pre-record that will get played in between games, and that will get played pre and post show, and players who they do invite on the cast and invite on the analyst desk slash lounge. Like that's what that's for. The post game interviews are for like analytical content and like getting the team's perspective and player perspective, I think.
yeah, I don't think it has to be that way though. So I mostly agree, but I don't think it absolutely has to be that way. If you got guys that are like content machines, you may as well throw them out for the interview and be hilarious, and then you could also have them do content on the sides. Like there's no like maximum amount of like, if there's interesting or fun things for them to do on the broadcast, you can't only save it for like YouTube content or whatever. I guess that's the way I look at it. But I do agree with you that I like hearing from the players, hearing what they think about certain builds or what champions to play or what the meta's like and things like that. I do like that.
Next up, I would say a pretty big portion of the LCS address video was talking about the change of the schedule from weekdays back to weekends, which is obviously a change that everybody is happy about. And part of the reason why everybody's happy about that is because everybody hated the fact that Riot moved the LCS games from the weekends to the weekdays. Once again, I will ask, where is this data? Where is this data that told Riot that it was going to be beneficial for them to move the broadcasts from weekday? Like, did that data change? Where is that data?
I think we lost the data.
Yeah, bro, they shredded they've put it through the digital shredder, I guess, because it's no surprise at all that the viewership went down again last year with the games moving from the weekdays from the weekends to the weekdays, and now we're back. I I apologize. I'm not trying to get too negative in this sort of section, but this is like so common practice for the LCS to make a change to the schedule and then instantly change it again or revert it the year after. This is just a
No, but this is
constant
the
thing
positive
that's
part.
been going on with the LCS since about 2019, 2020. I think it was 20 I want to say it was 2020 when they first came out with I think it started out as Monday Night League, which was then they took two matches and played them on Monday, and then the year
Yep.
after it became Friday Night League. And then the
Yep.
year after it became, okay, well, now we're going to make the season all count for the same record. And now we're going to do an additional round of the round robin. So we're going to have 3 days on the broadcast. And then that once again got reverted to last year. And now we're on this next iteration of it. So expect it to be
So
different next year, is all I have to say.
no, 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 no. We're coping here. Come on. I'm with you as to like I see why you're like, oh, this is negative. No, 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 no. This is positive now because now we're back on weekends. We have reasons to be positive. I am actually genuinely excited for the LCS for the first time in I don't know, long fucking time. Maybe that's mostly because of Mark. Honestly, I maybe we should talk about that real quick. The switch over to Mark. I don't know how you feel, but like for me, it was instant. Like this is such good news, and I'm not trying to make it like, oh, Mark's here, everything's going to be fine, no problem. The reason why it made me feel so much more positive or optimistic, let's say, about the LCS is because, well, obviously there's the things people know. He does Hotline League, right? He's well integrated with the community through Hotline, and he's been in the league forever, whether it's coaching or analyst stats. He's done that forever. Those are definitely all big things. But to me, um, when the LCS is on, like I'm not of the opinion that the LCS is dead, but I am of the opinion that the trajectory is not good. I want someone that if the LCS dies, they are absolutely devastated. And I'm not trying to say that the other commissioners wouldn't care, but I am very much of the opinion that Mark Z would be absolutely crushed if the LCS died. And that's what makes me feel so much better. Like
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
I know for a fact he's probably thinking about the LCS and how to improve it nonstop. Whereas I'm not sold that the other, like Greeley or Jackie, were necessarily thinking that way. Now I could be wrong. Maybe they were thinking about it all the time. Nothing gave me that impression that like they would be just so like I said, devastated if the LCS die. That's what gives me confidence, is that there's risks that need to be taken when we're on the trajectory that we are on. And Mark is not afraid at all to take risks. We're clearly seeing it by, like, this is what I thought even before we got the announcement, but all this list of announcements that we got, or changes rather, is just a start. And also, if there's anyone that knows risks, it's the guy that went on stage and sang fucking
The
Silver
bee woo
Scrapes.
whoop.
Like, if that's not taking a risk or catching up with Doublelift, like, this is the guy that's not afraid to take risks. I think we're very much in the, we need to take risks to change the appeal of the product, or just the vibes around the product. I think he's perfect for all of that.
Well, I just think the most important thing is that we have a commissioner now whose career and whose livelihood has basically been the LCS for the last decade.
Yeah.
For Chris Greeley was the commissioner for, I mean, I don't know how far back exactly. I'm going to presume since franchising, but that's just a straight up guess. And he was the commissioner till about 2020. And I don't really know a whole lot about his past, but I do know that he worked with Riot before. So he basically just was a Riot guy that came into the job for the LCS commissioner. And then obviously Jackie came in, who previously was with the Call of Duty League. But Markz is a guy who he's one of the pillars of the LCS broadcast for the last decade, basically.
There
And
was
he
another
know
commissioner. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
was there who
I don't remember who it was, but it was one of those like old like GMs or something like that. It might have been either like Nick Allen or Hunter Lee or something like that, that used to
this
commish
pre or post Chris Greeley we're talking about?
before Chris Greeley.
Oh, okay. Well,
There was somebody else. Maybe, hopefully, someone in the comment section could let me know. I don't think a lot of people would know, so I wouldn't be surprised if no one knows. But I think it was someone like that that used to be commissioner before Greeley, if I'm
mhm.
not mistaken.
And not to talk about the negative side of things, but the fact that the LCS does actually have a named commissioner, like
Ugh,
it's a person that can be held responsible for things. Like
yeah,
basically on all accounts, there's been no figurehead of the LCS who, a person who we could actively say this person is responsible. There's not been that person for basically the last 3 years. I know Chris Greeley has been the LCS commissioner, but he's been a ghost basically for the most part. You
yeah.
rarely ever see him at the he never gets featured on the broadcast. Is rarely was in any videos or anything providing explanations on a number of topics. It's funnily enough the only time that I ever saw him like promoted for something was the fact that he was the former commissioner who came to the LCS finals just in Newark, that we were there. Like I remember seeing a post about it. I was like, oh, now they're posting
Yeah.
about Chris Greeley. It's like, so I, once again, not to get too negative, but it is a very good thing that the LCS does have a front-facing figure that, whom we can target and talk about these things with and about.
Yeah, I hope no one takes this as shitting on Jackie or Greeley or anything like that. It's not about that. It's that I just have so much more faith that Mark cares way more about the LCS than nearly anyone else that could have gotten the job.
Yeah,
That's what
like
makes me
again,
feel
not
good
not
about
to
it.
flame Jackie or anything, but like, does the average person even know what she looks like? Like, I only know her as the Lego, the female protagonist
Mm.
from the Lego movie Twitter icon that she has. That's the only thing I know about Jackie Felling.
Yeah, and I think she got sick or something
She
like
did,
that too. So
and
there was
that's
some
that's that's
unfortunate.
that's no fault to her. But
Yeah,
she was basically the commissioner for about 6 months, and
yeah,
then was in a reserve role for a year while they found a new commissioner, which fortunately is Mark Z.
yeah. Any other LCS changes that you think need highlighting? There's a few of them that we still got on our thing here.
Yeah, there. One thing that I think is pretty interesting was the 2 week break that they're implementing in
Mm-hmm.
between weeks 4 and week 5. Well, number one, they didn't necessarily address this in the LCS address video, but it seems to be that they're basically keeping the exact same format for the league as last year, just with two less teams, and two less teams means less games that are going to be played. But I was hopeful that they were going to make it a best of one, like a triple best of one round robin with the
Yeah.
8 teams, meaning that there was, I think that makes a total of 21 games, but we're only going to be playing 14 games and they're best of one in the regular season. Like, that is fucking horrible. Like, I don't
I
even know
don't.
what to tell you. That is horrible.
I
The
don't think
L
it's
the
that
L
bad.
the LEC in their own like, this is the regular season of the LEC with the new 3 split format of regular season, group stage, playoffs. They play 9 regular season matches, and then they have group stage, and then they have playoffs. LCS has 14 games now.
So let me be clear. I would want the 21 games, right? No doubt there. I just understand that there's some logistic issues for getting that to happen because we know best of threes can't work anymore. We've heard that many times from all the people involved in the LCS. It's too difficult
Well,
to make it work.
they say
What?
that. They say that, but other leagues do it
You think
successfully.
they're just
So,
lying?
well, I mean, I don't know. Let's. There's a longer conversation to this, I would say. So, they,
Okay,
they,
and then
the short of it, I would say, is they prioritized the wrong things for a number of years, which has now led them into the hole that they can only go with best of ones.
well, and then another part of it would also be that because they probably do need to get in and get out so that they can fit LCS and Valorant in the same studio. Right now that they are back on weekends, that's probably the biggest obstacle to having either best of threes or more than 14 games because they would probably have to push it to like a Monday night or a Friday night or something like that. Which, as we are in agreement, just wasn't it. Like it just wasn't good
No,
for league. So that would be my guess as to
I
why they
mean
couldn't. I
they
think
did.
Mark mentioned something in the video that like he why best of ones, didn't he?
Well, they only said that week 5 is the only week where they have to share space with VCT.
And we still don't know what that's going to look like either, right?
Well, they did say that there's going to be no live audience for week 5. That was one thing that they said.
Oh, okay, that's weird, but sure.
Yeah.
That's so strange. So like that means that there is a live audience for Valorant then,
No,
right?
I think there's no live audience in general that week
Oh, that's
because
weird. I wonder who.
oh, it will actually. It was from Markz. He did an interview with Degon today. It was in that
Oh, I
video.
didn't see that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I
It
missed
was
it.
their it was some classic Riot give a bunch of non-answers basically. There was a few things that they did talk about, and one of them was that one week where they're not having a live audience for week 5 because week 5 is the time that they're going to be sharing the studio with Valorant, like on the same exact day.
So you're telling me all my optimism around Mark should be for naught because he's already speaking Riot speak.
I mean, a little bit, honestly, yeah.
Oh no.
I mean,
Oh boy.
I guess what I would say is it's. I mean, again, not to get too negative and everything like that, but the fact that he gave an interview in the lead up to the split, like when was the last time you ever saw Chris Greeley or Jackie for her short time period as the commissioner? How many times could you say you saw them sit down and give an interview?
I know
I can think
Travis
of
interviewed them.
exactly. I was going to say I know that Travis did an initial interview with Jackie. I remember watching that, and I know that Travis has done couple interviews with Chris Greeley over the years. Like, and I say over the years, meaning like 7 years, basically.
Yeah.
And however it is 2 months basically of Mark C being the acting commissioner, we had his announcement video, the LCS address video, and this interview with Deacon that just came out today. That's already more than I can count with Jackie Fowling and Chris Greeley in the last 5 years.
Yeah. He's
And
not gonna
that
hide
is a
it, so
good
that's
thing,
good.
100%. But
Yeah.
he had some pretty good Riot speak in this interview, so
Yeah, and that's something that like you kind of have to accept, right? If you're gonna be if we want them to speak to us, sure, but they can't always share everything as much as that just sucks. We have to accept that. You mentioned that you really liked some of the NACL changes. Are we talking fearless draft?
yeah, one of them was that right away. They admitted that they had been watching the LDL very closely when they had implemented the fearless draft last year, and they've officially switched the NACL format to single round robin best of 3 fearless drafts. Obviously, they still have the very expanded playoff bracket where they're going to bring in other teams and I think collegiate teams also, so they have like a big ass playoff. So the fact that they're playing only single round robin best of 3, like I think they like the number of games is still going to be around the same, but the fact that it's only a single round robin, I don't think hurts that much because it is best of 3 and they still have the expanded playoffs for NACL. And additionally, I think also just as important is the NACL is going live directly after LCS, and I feel
Yeah.
like that gives people a big incentive to continue watching North American League because it'll happen directly after the LCS concludes. Like that's like again for people who might not know this, they did this before. That's how like when it was called Academy at one point, that's how Academy worked. Academy would go live directly after LCS, and then all of a sudden they switched up the format to where when the LCS was on weekends in like 2020, 2021, they had Academy being played on Thursday, Friday. And then it was LCS Saturday, Sunday. And then when LCS did the flip to Thursday, Friday, they played NACL on Saturday, Sunday. But now they just have it going directly live, same days as LCS being played right after. I think that's best case scenario, and we're back to square one with that. So expect it to change again next year. But I think they have it right so far and right now, and keep it that way, please.
I think the reasoning was the reasoning why they didn't have them on the same day was in case there was someone that was playing both. Because
I
there were
mean,
times that
they've
you
they've
did
had
need to.
exceptions to that rule where people have played like Academy and then also played LCS in the same week. So
Mhm.
I've never. I guess as an argument to say why they had to do it on separate days, I would say that doesn't make sense because
Well,
we've seen exceptions made to that rule anyways.
I was just gonna say that it's a weak argument anyways, because like who
Yes,
cares that much about Academy? Like
exactly.
the player in theory, if he was playing both LCS and Academy, he would focus fully on the LCS games, and then when he's done that, just go play the Academy game. It's not like they're gonna hold his feet to the fire because he did something wrong in Academy. Like what teams should be understanding when a guy's juggling two workloads with two different teams. You know. Like
And
if you lose an academy game, it's not that big of a deal. Whereas if you lose an LCS game, it is a big deal.
yeah, and part of the reason why I initially said when we brought up this topic was that I was more excited about the NACL stuff was also just the last third of the video, the LCS address video, which was dedicated for NACL. I just thought they did a really good job of explaining the purpose of the NACL and what their goals are for it. And a lot of the changes that they've made, including the going live directly after LCS, plus the implementing the fearless draft with best of threes, they were saying all the right things. From we believe it's important for young players to have a wider champion pool as a way to help them get into the LCS because some young players at times have been gatekept by the fact that they might have been like one tricks of a champion or had a very small champion pool. So the fact that they're actively going to try to make these younger players learn more champions with the fearless draft mode is a good thing. And also with the part of going live directly after LCS, just further bridging that divide that exists between LCS and Academy slash Challengers League. Because I think we've both talked about it a lot on this podcast. We're not really invested in the NACL and never really have been. It's not been something that either of us have been super interested in. We've sort of our interest in it has picked up a little bit over the last couple of years, but this is once again just the perfect way to just slowly migrate and interest people in the NACL product. Is that these are the guys that you're going to see that are going to be in the LCS in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think it helps give some exposure to some of those players. Yeah, it's just a good idea. Did we even explain what fearless draft is? Did we do that?
And we don't need to. People know what that is. If they don't,
Okay.
then what the hell are you doing here anyway?
Well, the quick thing is that you can't play the same champions all the time.
Yeah.
That's TLDR. You have to change up your champion pool.
The last thing that they are changing with both the LCS and the NACL, I guess, just to round this thing out, is they're going to be playing the games on the live patch, which
I like it. Do you like it or dislike it?
I guess my question is every single league going to adopt this, or is this just some sort of gimmick? Because I don't know about you, but it felt like a bit of a gimmick to me. Be like, we're going to be playing the LCS on live patches, because most commonly the patch cycle is every 2 weeks, and the patch
Mhm.
would come out on it used to always be a Wednesday, now it's a Tuesday, I believe. And that weekend of LCS, like example, patch came out Tuesday, there was LCS on Saturday, Sunday, they would still be playing on the previous patch. And then
So
it would take basically a week and a half for LCS to update to the live servers. And I would say yes, it can. I get it from the standpoint that you want to have your viewers to be able to watch and see what's going on in LCS and implement and do and try those same things in the game itself. But I also fear it will and can affect the pro practice cycle and schedule and whatnot, just because it had already been so established to where you know that you're going to be playing this week of LCS on this patch, and you have a certain number of days to acclimate to that patch and figure stuff out. And you're basically saying that if the patch comes out Tuesday, you have only when the patch comes out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get ready for those games. And I know that they have, in this case with 14.1, they've updated the tournament realm for I think like almost a month now for people to run in-houses and champions queue on the new patch. So I think if they're implementing a system like that where tournament realm is going to be a couple weeks ahead, like they're going to put PvE patches on tournament realm for players to practice on before the patch comes out, I think in that world it can be a good thing. But I think if they're just doing it just to do it, feels like a bit of a gimmick to me.
Yeah, so I don't know if I care. So first of all, I don't know if it is or is not a gimmick, but I don't know if I care even if it is just a gimmick. To me, I think it makes the product way more interesting, which I would say is very much the same as Fearless Draft. It makes there be more different. It's more likely that there are new champions, which I think is something that is just good for the viewers. And when you have a product that really needs viewers, I think that's where the pros need to say we need to make a sacrifice so that people enjoy the product more, right? So
Yeah,
I think
I
it.
guess my point is that the other leagues have still been like so successful using the normal format like that. I guess my point in why saying it's a gimmick, like if this is something to draw interest to the LCS, then like I don't like that, and I don't think that they should do that. But if they genuinely have like an idea and a plan in place for, hey, we're going to be updating Tournament Realm on this day's X number of days before the patch actually comes out, so you have those extra days to practice, I think it's a good thing. But I think if you're just doing it just to like draw interest, be like, oh well, on LCS you can actually see the games being played on live patch a week in advance than LEC, LCK, LPL. That I don't know about that.
I think it also rewards people for playing new things though as well, and
Yeah,
for
for sure.
trying to create their own meta, which that is something that I really like. And I guess I'll have more of an opinion once I hear from more of the players. If all the players came out and said like this is a huge detriment to my ability to get better at the game, I'd be far less in favor of it. I don't think pros are going to necessarily love this, but I don't think they're going to be like, "Oh my god, this is ruined. I can't do this anymore," or anything like that. If it got to that, then I'd be far more against it. I think this is just a small little thing where pros are like, "Yeah, that's annoying," but and especially if they like if this makes them play more Champions Queue. I don't know if Champions Queue is staying open or not. I don't know if it's being implemented at Champions Queue, but if it was implemented into Champions Queue and that made them play more Champions Queue, that would also be a good thing.
Yeah, right now I'm working under the assumption that Tournament Realm is going to be, it's going to have the new patch a couple days in advance to when it actually drops. That's the assumption that I'm working under because that's the way they did it for 14.1, where it's been enabled in Champions Queue for almost the last month now. So if they're going to go with that system, I'm cool with it, and I think it's a good idea. However, if they're doing it as a gimmick to draw up interest and viewership, I think that's terrible.
I see. Anyways, I'm looking forward to it. I think I feel it. I feel like it's a good thing. My opinion might change a month or two from now if we hear from the players and they all absolutely despise it. Because I don't want it to be a big deal for the players. If it was just a small thing and they could live with it, then I can live with it too. Um, what else we got?
I guess there's a couple things that I just wrote down from that Degon interview that I think we'll just
Hmm.
mention because we've gone over everything that they said in the LCS dress video.
Okay.
But two more things, real quick. First of all, is Markz basically said that they are working with the plan that the LCS is going to be an 8-team league. Degon asked the question, are there plans to potentially go back up to 10 teams through teams naturally wanting to rejoin the LCS or new orgs wanting to join the LCS or a promotion relegation system working
Hmm.
with the NACL?
Yeah.
And Markz basically just said that as of right now, we're working with the plan that the LCS is going to be 8 teams. They're not ruling out the possibility that it could come back to 10 teams, but their goals are working within an 8-team league. So I think that's an important point to talk about. Uh,
Yeah, I think that that's good. My instinct is that that's a good thing. I've said, and I know people will just say, "Oh, you were coping once the LCS lost two teams." No, I've said for long before we knew that I think the LCS should be an 8-team league, and I know I'm not the only one that said that. But I'm just trying to throw that out there so that people aren't just saying, "Oh, you're just saying that to cope." Like, no, I think that. And
yeah,
this goes back to what I was saying before. A more consumable broadcast is much better for casual. Not everyone is like you and I, where we do our own podcast about the whole league, where we never miss a game, where we watch other podcasts about it, where like not everyone is like that. Some people just want to chill on the weekend, see what game is on. Oh, there's a few games, I'll watch them. And then they're done with it. And then League of Legends doesn't exist until next week again.
yeah,
So I think it's much better for those people.
yeah. And then last up, actually, there's two more things. Sorry. So two more things now. One was talking about in reference to the switch back to the weekends, and then was also sort of talking about when they were discussing how the Valorant and League of Legends crossover and that week 5 thing was going to happen. Mark gave a bit of an interesting quote where he talked about the scheduling and everything like that, and he said that they're trying to collaborate with the entire ecosystem, including Valorant. And I found that comment to be pretty weird
What do you
because
think that means?
well, I think that means they're taking they're taking into account Valorant and the games, the professional games that they're broadcasting into the scope of League of Legends broadcasting, which I don't think should exist. Now, obviously, it's a bit weird because specifically with the LCS, they're playing VCT and LCS in the same studio. Now, I don't know. I honestly have no idea what Valorant in EU looks like. I barely even know what it looks like in North America, but I presume that they're not using the same studio as the LEC studio for the matches. So they have their own independent facility to stream some of those matches. I'm just guessing. This is a pure guess. But because I mentioned this was in reference to talking about how the LCS and the VCT are going to share that space in the fifth week, and I just don't think that, apart from the actual physical space of the studio, I really don't think you should be taking into account a completely other game that is not in the same genre whatsoever. I mean, I understand that it's the same, like they're made by the same publisher, Riot Games, but I don't understand why Valorant would need to be considered in the League of Legends ecosystem. Like
I don't
that.
even know if I understand what the hell we're talking about. I'm
I mean,
confused.
I guess you'll have to watch the video, but he basically just made the point that like in Riot's mind, Valorant is a part of the League of Legends ecosystem, which I just don't like. That doesn't make
What
any
does
sense
that
to me.
mean?
That just means that like you're telling me that like League of Legends is a MOBA, like, and
Uh-huh.
Valorant is an FPS. That's like
Uh-huh.
saying that a fish is a part of a desert ecosystem. You know what I mean? Like that does not compute. That doesn't make sense.
I mean, if the fish has a water tank, I don't know. I don't know. Until I know what this
Like
really means. Like,
it just felt like a really weird like I don't know, like you'll have to watch the interview yourself, but like it just felt really weird that like why are
okay.
Riot executives and higher ups thinking of like Valorant and League of Legends in the same like breath? Like apart from the actual shared space that they have, the physical space, like these games are not connected whatsoever. Apart from the fact that they're made by the same company. Like
Do they
maybe
mean like they think there's a lot of crossover in their viewers, and
I
so
mean
like they're gonna try to get? Is that what you're saying?
even if they're I don't, it's not what I'm saying, it's what they're saying. I didn't say anything. I'm talking about what they said.
I know, but I still don't get what they said.
You'll have to watch it, I guess. But bro, I don't know. Like
Okay.
it was just weird. Okay, and
I
last but not least, Degon did ask Markz about the Danny situation and if there was any update to the investigation that Riot was held, and they basically said that they're not allowed to speak about any of that stuff. So
oh boy, that got
for all the people who were wondering about the Danny situation, it sounds like there are no answers coming anytime soon.
that went from funny to not funny real quick.
Yeah.
So wait, he said that they can't speak on it at the moment. That doesn't mean that the investigation is over or anything like that. To me, that just means the investigation
He
is still
basically
ongoing.
said that
No?
legally they're not allowed to speak about anything.
I see.
So
Did you? I wish I would have known that this interview existed because I would have watched it before we recorded. Was there any sense that you got that like the investigation is over or like?
no, it was a straight up like
Okay,
I can't answer any
yeah,
questions you have
can't
about
talk about
this.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it was. So the
Well, I
point
do
the
know
point
that
is I don't think we're gonna get any answers anytime soon. If people were thinking that like, oh, like I know it's been like a year and a half now, like it's 2024 now, like maybe we'll get some, nope, no answers.
I'm okay with that as long as it's not we're getting answers 10 years from now. Like as long as there's no sign that anyone's running from this to sweep under the rug, fine. But I can understand that investigations with very serious things like that could take a really long time. So and how it runs out in like the legal system and all that stuff, I'm sure could take a long time. So maybe that's why. I don't want to make any assumptions on things I just know nothing about. If there's any sign that they start to sweep under the rug, then I'm a little bit more upset. But at this moment, I have no reason to believe that.
Well, I think unless we have missed anything on our list here, I think that's all when it comes to Markz and the changes coming to the LCS.
And hopefully some more. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more changes to the LCS as time goes on. I feel like
Like I
there
said,
is
that's a
already a
given.
lot of changes. Like there's a lot of changes. I feel like they're already taking on a lot of changes all at one time. I'm sure they got other ideas as well that probably be
Yeah.
looking forward to. And
I'll reiterate my initial statement that I made at the start of this topic was this is going to be a very experimental year of
which I'm
LCS.
yep, and I'm totally cool with that.
Mhm.
Let's shake things up.
I just hope that the oh Jesus, I was about to say hopefully the data that we collect this year is going to lead us to back to the promised
Oh,
land, but with that data, who fucking knows?
you're not a data guy no more. Jinter is
No,
cold on
not Riot
data.
data, not Riot data. The
I
fucking
don't
lies.
I don't blame you. Okay, let's do power rankings because, well, we got a split coming up in
5
less than a
days.
week now. Yeah. Um, I don't even know how did we talk about how we were gonna structure this
Well,
or
no,
what are
but
we
in typical CFP fashion, Blue Jay has yet to see my power rankings, and I've seen his, so he'll be taking them in for the first time. I will read them out for
Wow.
the audio only people.
Okay.
But my power rankings, I have Cloud9 number 1, Energy number 2, TL number 3, FlyQuest number 4, Shopify number 5, Dig number 6, 100 Thieves number 7, and Immortals number 8. Blue Jay has Cloud9 number 1, Energy number 2, FlyQuest number 3, Team Liquid number 4, Shopify number 5, Immortals number 6, gasping emoji, Dig number 7, 100 Thieves number 8.
So, okay, where should we start here? We each have Cloud9 1, we each have
I
Energy
mean,
2.
I think we should start at the top just because that makes the most sense.
Okay.
No surprise that both Cloud9 and NRG are the number 1 and number 2 teams in the power rankings, though there may be some surprise as to us both having Cloud9 as the number 1 team over NRG after NRG beat Cloud9 in the summer finals, went to
No.
Worlds, did better at Worlds, and you could argue upgraded their roster at the support position, replacing Ignar for Hui.
I don't think anyone's gonna be surprised by that.
I don't
You
think so,
have
but I just don't want to get we're kind of like pseudo NRG haters a little bit. So we got to remove that narrative this year.
not haters, doubters, Jinter. You gotta understand
But I think
there's a difference.
there might be a difference, but I think most people would equate a doubter to a hater. So
Yeah, I've made this distinction many times. I love NRG. I just don't necessarily think they're that
see,
good. And
we
then
already got
and
someone saying
maybe
NRG and 2 is disrespectful SMH. We knew it was coming, but sorry.
so this is perfect. I honest to God, I thought that you might have NRG 3. I think there's some people
Nah.
that are gonna be surprised FlyQuest isn't number 2.
Oh, I have them before, so
I see that's the thing that got me surprised was that you had Team Liquid ahead of FlyQuest. So for listeners, Jinter has TL3 ahead of FlyQuest 4, and the real reason why that surprised me is because you've been really cold on APA
this is
for
true. But I would also argue that I've been a lot higher on Yan as a lot of other people. So if
okay.
we want to balance that out, you know.
And Umpty, it's kind of hard to say. Like whenever there's a transition like that, you don't really know what you're gonna
Yeah.
get. Piosik was very up and down. Like he had a really rough start, if I remember right, and then kind of finished when he was pogging, especially at
Yeah.
Worlds. His one game against T1, he almost single-handedly carried it. Like you got a lot of different stuff out of Piosik when he went over. Who knows what the hell we're gonna get out of Umpty?
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
I don't
we're
think having
deviating so
NRG
hard.
two. I don't think NRG two. I don't think that that's disrespectful. In my opinion, I think it's very clear to me that Cloud9 has Blabber, the best jungler. They well, maybe inspired. We'll have to see his form, but Blabber over the last 5 years, the best jungler. Um, Jojo Pyun, the MVP, and well, he's been the best. Everyone just
Been the
says
best
hands
mid
down
laner
he's
for
the
2
best mid
years.
laner.
Yeah.
Yeah, hands down. Like everyone says that, like hands down, it's Jojo. Vulcan, probably the best support over the last. What would you say? 5 years?
Yeah, it's really honestly support. I feel like is one of those positions where it's tough to say, just because we've had a number of different people at the top of the support position, and it's kind of fluctuated a little bit over the last few years. So while yes, I think the statement of Vulcan is the best has been the best support in the league over a period of time, I don't think that holds the same weight as Blabber being the best
Agreed.
jungler over a certain period of time. If people know what I'm saying there.
I for sure agree. I don't want to gloss over that. Like last year was not the greatest year for Vulcan, right? Like FlyQuest struggled quite a bit in summer and when he was there. So I'm not trying to gloss over that. And I think you're right to point out that him being the best support is not the same as Blabber being the best jungler, like you said. But the point is, they're still towards the top in pretty much everything. I don't
You
know
didn't
if
even
I
say
feel that way
Berserker's
about.
name. You didn't even say
Well,
it.
yeah, yeah, Berserker and Fudge. Honestly, even though Fudge
I
didn't
would
have that great
argue
of a year
that
last year.
I would argue that Berserker is probably the most clear in his role of like he's the best player in his role. Like
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I could probably see that. Yeah, I think I can get behind that. I don't know because again, JoJo as well. Like he's clearly the best mid. So basically,
some
they
people
have the
Palafox,
yeah.
Palafaker.
I Palafox stand. I'm definitely I'm there with you. I just think it's like if you're asking me, do you want JoJo or Palafox? I'm taking JoJo Pyun, and I don't have to think about it. As much as I love Palafox, as much as I do think that he doesn't get enough love for just how good he is, it's still not close to me. I'm taking JoJo Pyun with no hesitation. Whereas like support, I'd probably have to think about it. Top, I'd probably have to think about it, and that's probably it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Mid, jungle, and AD. I'm taking all of the Cloud9 guys. So it's like, how can I not put them number one? Um, I want to rewind back to um oh God, it was just before we stopped doing episodes before the break. So it would have been once Cloud9's team had been formed, and we were talking about Cloud9's expectations for this year. And you said, do you remember where I'm going with this? You
I
said
don't.
Cloud9 needs to win both splits, or it's a failure. Do you remember this?
Oh, I said that? I mean, yeah. I mean, probably, yeah. I
Yep.
I I,
And
I think
I
that I would
said,
still agree with that statement, even if I don't
yeah,
really remember saying it, but I would agree with that.
that's what I'm getting around to now. Is I said I would need to wait and see how the other rosters finalized before I had an opinion of what a failure is for Cloud9. And there's nothing all that crazy to me about the other rosters, even though they absolutely could win. Like NRG could win. I could see FlyQuest winning a split. To me, it's still that much Cloud9 favored that I've pretty much come to agree with you in saying that, like, yep, I think Cloud9 needs to win both splits with how stacked this roster is, or it's a failure. At the very least, you got to go to MSI and Worlds. Um, but I still think like that's setting the bar a little bit low for how good this team should be. Doesn't mean nothing could go wrong. Remember, Fudge struggled last year. Vulcan struggled a little bit last year. You're throwing a bunch of new pieces together. Like that's
Jojo
always
was
whenever there's
struggling before he was the MVP.
yeah, and whenever there's new pieces that are put together, they don't always mesh, right? Like it's not always that simple.
100%.
So, anyways, all this to say that yes, Cloud9 is my pick. I do think they should win both splits. Um, but it's not that free, I guess is where I'll leave it.
Mhm. And I mean, we've kind of talked about NRG a little bit, but just to quickly touch on them, I did consider potentially putting NRG number one, and it's just for the simple fact where I've basically said this almost every single time when we talk about power rankings. Continuity over the course of a season or a split, I do think is important, especially towards the start of the season. And the fact that Energy basically has the same exact roster minus Ignar plus Huhi. And I think I even said it at the time, like, this team is still going to function as the same team. Whereas Cloud9, for example, like, the team is going to take a much different shape, in 2024 than 2023. They were a very bot side, top side focused team last year. Kind of the beginning of the year was very topside heavy when the meta was all like Jax, Fiora, Cassante, and then ended up being very bot side heavy once people just realized Bjergsen is the best player in the league. Give this guy resources, he's going to carry. And with Jojo coming into the fold and Vulcan joining in the bot lane, being a stronger laning support than Cloud9's previously had, I think we're gonna see a different version of Cloud9. I do wonder if we're gonna see maybe a more passive Blabber become a bit more of a facilitator for the strong laning of Vulcan, Berserker, and Jojo, and we see a different style of Cloud9. So for that reason, I thought of putting Energy number one, just because like they're just gonna do the same exact things, whereas Cloud9 might have to learn how to play a little bit differently. So just to throw Energy a bit of love, I did consider them putting number one, but
It's
I would say
interesting.
the individual star power of Cloud9's roster just ultimately made it too hard not to pick them number one.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, back to the energy being disrespected being in number two. That's perfect. This is right where energy wants to be. They want
Yeah,
to
true.
be disrespected.
That's true,
Like
actually.
this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. If I could if I wish I could say it with like a straight face and pretend I'm not lying and just say like I think Palafox is so shit and Contracts is so shit, and then we could just clip it and at them on Twitter and send it to them. They'd win the whole they'd fucking win worlds. I just can't do it without like people wouldn't take me serious. But if I could actually act so good and just pretend I was serious, it'd be the best fucking thing for NRG.
Yeah.
The other thing is I'm gonna take the bait. Dustin in YouTube chat's gonna get me in trouble here. But he said, would anyone say JoJo is overrated? And I'm gonna say yes, but hear me out. Please, God, hear me out. If people hear me say JoJo's overrated, they're gonna think, oh, you're just saying that JoJo's not that good when he's clearly good. No, he is clearly good. That's why I have Cloud9 number one, because he's an absolute monster. But I did not have him as MVP, whereas everybody else seemed to last
I didn't
split.
either,
So
for what it's
so yeah, so to me, I don't think JoJo's been MVP yet. Or he didn't win MVP in another split yet, right?
trying to think who won MVP. No, Inspired won MVP when the EG was. I said the EG when EG was doing really well in 2022.
Yeah.
Inspired won summer 2022 MVP.
So honestly, to me, just this is just in Blue Jay world here. I still think like I need Jojo Pyun to prove to be MVP still because to me he didn't get. I know that's gonna piss off so many fucking people. Comment section if you want to get mad at me. Um, so I would say very slightly, although like it's very insignificant because I do think that he's maybe the best player in the league. It's hard because it's maybe Blabber, it's maybe Berserker. So I don't think he's far behind. But I saw that comment and I'm like, oh, this is bait, but I'm gonna answer it anyway.
Yeah, I guess also, I guess to counterpoint myself in the argument that I was making earlier, like is Cloud9 going to sort of switch up their playstyle? Also, it might be Jojo Pune is the one who switches up his playstyle. He's normally known as a very aggressive laner who likes to play forward in lane, who isn't afraid of going for 1v1s, all ins, potentially making mistakes. And who knows, maybe we see him fill that more of a Niski role that was on
You
Cloud9
knew I
when.
was gonna go there. You knew I
Well,
was
yeah,
going
but
with
I
that.
mean, it makes you wonder. Like, is
You
Blabber
know,
just still going to be the strong side? It'd be like, okay, we're going to pick mid laners that are going to support Blabber to allow him to do whatever he wants, or is it going to be the reverse? And I could see it going both ways. Honestly, I have no idea. That's why there was that temptation to put energy number one.
wouldn't it feel weird if you got Jojo Pyun and then you just ask him to be a prio guy instead of a I want to fucking kill you guy, which is like what he wants. Like he wants to play aggro in
Well,
your face, not
prio means
shove and
winning your
roam.
lane, so I would say it's kind of in his play style a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, you know what? You're actually right because I could actually see Jojo being a very good prio and roam play rather than try to solo kill and just take plates mid kind of guy. I could actually see it. So maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Well, I feel like we kind of did NRG and C9 in a bit of a grouping, so I think we should move
Yeah,
on to FlyQuest and Team Liquid as our next little grouping that we have in the
yeah.
3-4 section. I had Team Liquid 3, you had them 4, and obviously the reverse being I had FlyQuest 4, you had them 3. So I guess to kick it off with the maybe I'll be pro TL in this case. Impact is Impact. That's he's gonna fill his role on this team. He's gonna do everything right. He's gonna be able to support the guys when they're struggling. I'm expecting, I'm not. I shouldn't say I'm expecting. I'm thinking this is going to be a very sort of front to back team fighty type of meta that we enter. We've seen a little bit of that from the minimal LEC that we've seen so far on the new patch. There's been a decent amount of tank tops with sort of facility early ganking utility type junglers, and I feel like that's going to be perfect for this team. And I know that I did say I was a little bit worried about like the Team Liquid roster being okay. Well, now you've basically doubled down on Yan and APA, and I'm just rolling with it at this point. Like if we're going to be putting the eggs into the Yan and APA basket, give them the best supportive top laner that you can find known to man. The one who is going to be willing to sacrifice his lane to go help mid. He's going to be willing to sacrifice his lane to go make roam to help on dragon plays, now void grubs, rift herald, whatever it may be. Like Impact is the guy you want if you're worried anywhere else on the rest of the map because he's going to provide he's going to do his role. He's not going to make mistakes and he's going to be there when the moment matters.
Hmm. I kind of want to group this TL discussion with the FlyQuest one, seeing as again this is what we have. Like
I just said that.
oh, I missed that part. Okay, so this is not the first time. This is like the fourth time that I've lost audio for a little bit. I don't know what the hell's going on with that. Um, so yeah, I got FlyQuest 3 mostly because look, there's a lot that can go wrong with the FlyQuest roster. I guess I'll just start with like who knows what the hell this bot lane is going to look like, right? Masu hella hyped up, but like we've had rookies not work out before, right? You could point to TL and point at the rookies and say they were very hit or miss, mostly miss towards the end of the year, right? So what if that's what we get from Masu? I'm not expecting it, which is why I felt comfortable putting them ahead of TL. Um, I also just really like Inspired. Like, I don't know exactly what to think that we're going to get out of Umti, but I feel very, very confident when it comes to Inspired. When Inspired was playing, to me, he was either the best jungler, most of the time, the best jungler, or at least one of. And like, he is so, so good. Sometimes the best player in the league when he was winning MVP. To me, he was hands down best in the league, and it wasn't close. With that said, when a guy takes a break, I get a little bit nervous. And that's why I'm a little bit nervous about FlyQuest is you got Bwipo that also was coming off break. And Jensen, who didn't have that great year with Dick. Like, there's lots of things to be worried about with FlyQuest. I still just have faith that I have way more faith in this team than I do TL. Even though I like that TL stuck with APA, they stuck with Yon. They're still like kind of pseudo rookies in my head. I just think they need a little bit more time before I give them more confidence than I do FlyQuest to the long-standing veterans of like Bwipo inspired Jensen.
Yeah, I tried. I've learned my mistake from last year of just, they got a bunch of good players equals good team. Like I had to reserve myself a little bit because once again, I did consider putting FlyQuest 3, but you really don't know what you're getting yourself into with this FlyQuest roster and how it's all going to mesh out. I think this is once again a roster who nobody on the team has ever played with each other ever at any point. So, there's going to be a bit of an acclimating period where people kind of get to know each other's play styles, how they work in game, champion pools, and everything like that. So, I think FlyQuest is a team where I think by the end of like assuming everything works out and all these players sort of fit well together on the team, I think this is a team that people are expecting to contend, but I don't think it's going to look like that right away.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about TL. I give APA a full year. I feel way more comfortable in summer APA coming up this year than I do in spring, but I still have confidence in APA just because he's such a grinder.
Yeah, I mean, again, just to quickly jump back to TL, they were known last year as the grinding team, and from everything that I've seen, that hasn't stopped. APA and Yan played the most games in like Worlds Bootcamp solo queuing. They're like one of the highest, I think, for Champions queue when it was out last year, and I think for the start of this year, they were one of the more active people on it. So I was quite down on APA last year, but I'm building my way back up here.
This is totally random, but I just thought of this. What I wanted to happen, not because I wanted to see Jan back in Academy, I didn't, but I wanted Sven to take his spot so that Sven could be like back to Academy. or
That would have
or
been
when
pretty
Sven
good.
or if Sven signed with an ACL team, I needed Jan to tweet at Sven like back to Academy. That would have been great. Yeah.
Well, I guess next up we both have Shopify Rebellion at number 5. Dude, it feels like I don't even know how I'm supposed to explain this. Like, for example, if we had 10 teams in the league, like even if Golden Guardians and Evil Geniuses were still in the league and they had rosters, I feel like I would be putting Shopify 5 regardless of whatever rosters they were going to put out. Like, I don't know.
I think I feel what you're saying.
I have a lot of confidence in this team and this org and what they're doing, and a lot of it is off the back of just what we saw in the last basically 6 months of 2023, where we saw Boogie become consistently a really good jungler. We saw Insanity be a really good mid laner who has a wide champion pool, who can do a lot of things. And I mean, I know it was a small sample size, but eliminating some of those super int mistakes that we did see on his Immortals days. And I don't really know a whole lot about Bvoy, the ADC who they brought in. I know he previously played in the LEC a little bit on Misfits, and I think he's been bouncing between like uh, smaller, minor regions from then. But the rest of the roster, bringing in Fake God and whatnot, I have a lot of confidence that Shopify is going to be a good team in this league.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, you feel a little bit guilty for having them bottom half because you're
Yeah, like
confident in the team,
exactly. It
but you
doesn't
just couldn't find a way to put them above TL or FlyQuest. Yeah?
exactly. Yeah, like if there was like I said, if there was 10 teams, they were going to be number 5. Doesn't matter who the hell was on those rosters unless it's obviously like some god squad or some shit, but
Yeah, it's hard to say that without knowing what the other teams would have been, but I think I agree with the idea behind the sentiment behind what you're saying. That it does feel like this is a team that is not with the shiniest pieces, but they're durable pieces, and you do expect a decent League of Legends game to be played out of this team. Now, watch us
Mhm.
eat our fucking words in a month where they're sitting at the bottom of the standings. But for now,
I
we're confident that this is a team that needs to be respected and that could take some games off of even some of the better teams.
100%, yeah. Like it would not surprise me at all to see this team like in the top 4 of the standings in the first half of the LCS.
Would you say this team got the juice?
Of course.
Okay. Good.
There it is right there. No, what else do I need to say?
For those listening, JNT is pulling up a old image of Insanity where he has the juice.
Yep.
If he if we're doing if they're popping off, right, and Shopify Rebellion is just absolutely styling on everyone. You know how every week we pull up the logos of the individual teams? We got to get rid of the Shopify logo and just pull up Insanity with the juice every week if he's styling like we hope he does.
Hey, I'm all good with that.
Okay.
Like I said, we need an updated version of it. I need like if we're truly to believe in these changes coming to the LCS, how there's going to be voting and like interactivity, I will spam the LCS and the broadcast and the stream and the chat with bring a jug of orange juice with you to the interview with Insanity so we can recreate that image.
Get this guy the juice for sure. Um, I'm really excited about Fake God and Zazel.
Yeah, me too, dude. Fake God he's on his Dokla arc. Like this is his time.
It's very much similar where it's like this. I feel confident that he's going to get back in the league, prove himself, just because he had so much success at NACL. Now, mind you, not the same. We always preface this by saying like, yeah, you might be shitting on guys in an academy or any your challenger, whatever the hell they're calling it now, but this is a different league. Yet I still have faith that he's going to be able to do it. And Zazel, I think we're of the opinion that Zazel was an LCS caliber support regardless. Like he didn't have a team, but he still belonged in the LCS. I'd say the same thing about Chime right now. Rip Chime.
Yeah.
There's just some guys that there's not a spot for everyone, but there's guys that are worthy of playing in the LCS, and Zazel has always felt like that to me anyway.
Yeah, I know a lot of people remember Fake God's like last and most recent time in the LCS before he went back and kind of got demoted. But he like when he replaced Someday on 100 Thieves, he honestly wasn't that bad. Like he wasn't great by any means, but he wasn't bad. Like he was a solid player. And then when Dignitas, they had that like Dardoch roster when they were like somewhat decent in the regular season in both spring and summer. Like Fake God was still like a pretty decent player. It just really was that 2022 where he had a really rough, I think it was spring split. Then he got booted off a dig. But it wasn't until that 2022 spring split where he just got reamed on repeat. Like he was still a
Mhm.
pretty solid player. So I'm similar to you. I'm expecting him to just come back and be pretty LCS caliber. Plus, he was also on Dig Challengers, wasn't he? And they were like one of the best academy teams in all of 2023.
I can't remember.
I don't know. I also no, he was on DSG. Sorry, DSG. Why did I say Dig? DSG.
Oh, I thought
I
you meant before
I
DSG.
got I
Like, yeah,
got
I knew he was
the
on
no,
DSG.
I got the D right. But yeah, DSG. DSG was one of the best challenger teams
Yeah,
last
they
year.
won
Like, yeah.
the thing. They won the whatever,
Uh-huh.
which was kind of cool. Also, we mentioned Sven before. I'm going to throw out this take now that we're talking about DSG because it wouldn't get pulled for Hotline League, and I'm salty. I think DSG should have gone after Sven.
Too
My
much
take
money,
behind
bro.
it, so maybe it is expensive. I could get behind that. However, think of the opportunity that you could do if you like. You've already proven that you could put together a winning roster. They did that last year. Like you're trying to prove that the LCS needs you, right? And they need to pay you to be in the league rather than you buy your spot. How valuable would it have been for a content creation, an org with content creation background being disguised toast, and a content machine in Sven coming together to make a product? Like Sven right now does not have a team, as far as I know. Do you know if he has a team? I don't think he has a team.
I mean, we would have seen him playing in LEC if he had one, I guess. Because I mean, don't think that
Or
he's
we would have
going
seen an
to.
announcement.
I don't think he's going to any minor region.
Yeah, or we would have seen an announcement if he was even playing in like NACL or something like that. Maybe I've missed it if he
No,
is,
that
but I feel like I would have known.
we would have seen it.
Like I think Sven would probably actually want to play, even if it is an academy, just so he can start because he wants to play AD right now. I think it'd be really valuable for him to get some reps in a league somewhere so he could, work towards becoming an AD carry again because he's been playing support for what, like a year and a half or 2 years now, or
Year and a
whatever it
half.
was. Like, if he really wants to be an AD carry, he needs to get the reps in with, a team, not just solo queue, I would imagine. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I just thought that that was such a good opportunity for, and also, if you want guys to learn from a veteran, is Sven not one of the best guys to learn to play with? If, like, let's say you have a really good academy support and you just want to get him with someone that can help him, uh, redefine, I don't know if that's the right word, but just define their solid features or whatever. I don't know what words I'm saying here, but you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
That like
yeah.
Zen would be the perfect veteran to put um with a rookie.
Um. Well, part of the just to get back to Shot by Rebellion, and I guess to move on to the next couple of teams. Part of the reason why I said it feels a bit disrespectful to have them at number 5, and why I said I would have had them at 5 regardless of the other two teams in their rosters is I don't know about you, but I feel like the drop off after
We're on the
Shopify
same page. We're on
is
6, 7, 8 are all 8. Yes, is that what
yeah,
we're?
pretty like
Yeah.
actually, you know what I realized what I should have done is instead of having them 6, 7, 8, I should have just gone 5 and then 8, 9, 10, and just 6 and 7 didn't even exist because
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I mean, people can recall from the videos that we were making before or I guess during the off season, but the rosters that these teams being Immortals, Dignitas, and 100 Thieves have put together are not the strongest of rosters.
That's what we think, right? Now, I don't want to pretend like there's no world in which one of these teams performs well. There's reasons for me to be skeptical about all of them. I'll start with, I don't know, you got I don't
Like,
know,
well,
just 100 Thieves, sure.
okay, I was gonna say we'll start with Dig because the only reason that
Okay.
I put Dig at number 6, is
Rich.
because I have faith in Rich. I have omega faith in Rich. That's about it.
And I guess I'll counter with the pessimism. Rich had a very good first half to summer split, and then had a not so good second half, right? You saw him really fall off, and so that's a problem. And to me, I think the best player on this team is Rich. And if you had a guy who's your best player who's like wasn't that good for a whole split, like he kind of fell off, that makes me nervous if that's like your best piece. As
I
much as
mean,
I love Rich, like he did not perform well towards the end of the split, not at all.
yeah, I mean, the other positive in the Dignitas case, I would say, is also Dove is just like he's an LCK mid laner. No, I don't think
Yeah.
he's going to come in and dominate the league and be one of the top players in his role, but he's going to be, I think, a lot more. I think he's going to be much more solid than the majority of the other players, other import players that we're seeing on these other two rosters. Those being 100 Thieves and Dignitas, sorry, 100 Thieves and Immortals.
Yeah, Immortals has their fair share of Korean players. I don't remember, or I don't even know where they all played. Obviously, we know Olay.
Yeah, he's the only one that we know really. I mean, Mask played
Um,
in like Unicorns of Love. I know Castle. I think he was playing in like KT Challengers or something like that.
yeah,
I
the
don't know.
reason why I was able to put Immortals above them all, why I had Immortals 6, was just because I didn't think Armeo got much love for how good he was at the start of last split. I know he ended up getting benched, and they went with Shaden or Shiden. I can't remember how you say it. Shaden, I think. I thought that Armeo like really didn't get enough love for how good he was performing. I felt like that all went to JoJo, even though like the mid jungle was really good. It felt like just by default all the credit went to JoJo Pyun, which don't get me wrong, I get why he had a good split, but it's like the split prior, Jojo was running it down, and then he starts playing with Armeo and he finds his game. I feel like you deserve a little bit of credit for that. And I didn't really feel like he got that, especially once he got benched. So that's something that like I don't want to overlook Armeo. I'm not going to pretend I think he's the best jungler in the league, but I do think that he's definitely LCS worthy. So I'm happy to see him on a team. Um,
I
Nothing
just
really else excites me about Immortals though. Like
e-
again, there's some imports I don't know much about, and then tactical. You and I were colder than most people on tactical last year.
yeah, I don't think we need to rehash that.
But like honestly, we should rehash it though, not because we want to bash tactical, but because I think community sentiment was pretty good around tactical last year.
I
I
mean,
think a lot
yeah.
of the analysts were saying like tactical was actually playing really good, and to me, at least, maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth. To me, I thought tactical had a really good start to summer, and then I thought he fell right off a cliff real
I don't know
quick, and it
about. I
didn't.
don't know if we can consider the first two games as really good, like a really good start. That's a really good 2 games.
But I agree that that's why I don't have that much faith in tactical. But it felt to me like most of the analysts around the league really had a lot of faith in tactical, whereas you and I did not. So I think it's worth mentioning that just because our opinion differs from, I think it differs from other analysts, like the
Yeah, like
LCS analysts. I don't know.
the two 80 carries that got booted out of the league because they didn't have a spot was Stixay and Sven, but we
Yeah,
kept tactical. Like
yeah.
we couldn't pay a little bit more money to get Stixay and have him like we really couldn't
Nope.
do that. We couldn't. It was not possible, huh?
So let's also say that it's possible that Stixay was supposed to be playing for Golden Guardians and then they just left, and maybe Tactical had already signed. I don't know any, or not signed but verbal agreement. You know.
I mean, I guess the only thing that I would say to that is, unfortunately, if you're the general manager of Immortals, this is a business, my bro. Like, this
I
is a
agree.
business, and if it's a verbal agreement and it's not a signed contract, I would have, I would have. What's the word I'm looking for? I would have metaphorically torn up that verbal agreement and gotten 6A.
Yeah, I agree. But it is possible that that's how that went down. Um, yeah, I guess I just, in short, I agree. Like those 280 carries should be playing over
Mhm.
Tactical, in my opinion.
Just quickly
What?
on the Arameo point, I think he's.
Mhm.
I feel like he probably is just going to suffer from having lesser players and talent around him. Like, this, I don't know, because I feel like you have jungler. Like jungle, it feels like a very to oversimplify it a little bit. I feel like jungle is a pretty easy role in the sense that you get a lot of good player. And once I'll reiterate, oversimplifying here. When you have
Mhm.
a lot of good players on your team, it's pretty easy to jungle. Like you just kind of need to know how to path correctly. You need to know where to be, what to do. But when you're on a sinking ship on a bad team where every lane is just constantly losing and like you're getting stretched so thin because you your top laner might be calling like, "Hey man, I need you to cover me for this dive," and bot lane's like, being like, "Oh man, our wave is such a horrible state. Like, you need to come help us, push us out so we can't get froze like freezed on." I feel like that's what Armeo is going to be doing a lot of on this team is like plugging all the holes on the sinking ship, and there's not going to be enough. Like you see that like in the cartoon where like the guy is like holding his hands up on the boat and then his foot and then like he's got a finger plugged in the hole and then like the other hand like it's going to be one of those types of situations where like I know Armeo is a decent player and he's not the problem that I have on this roster, but I feel like the rest of the roster is just going to weigh him down.
There's a chance that all 5 of them suffer from immortalitis. That's a pretty
Immortalitis, okay,
common
yeah, yeah.
that's a pretty common theme.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm just gonna say I'm stoked that Olay is back. I fucking
Yeah,
love
I like
Olay.
Olay.
Even he might not be good anymore. I don't know. I hope he is. I don't care. I'm cheering for Olay. That guy is so fun. I just love Olay being back in the league. He's just a fun personality. I'm looking forward to that. That's my positivity around Immortals. I guess and Armeo. I said good things about him too.
The last team that we have yet to talk about is 100 Thieves. Well, I mean, I remember talking about this team when the offseason was going on, and I was pleased that they were going the rookie route and not necessarily
Hmm.
doing recycled veterans like Immortals is doing. I
Or like
just,
they did last year with
oh,
Doublelift and Bjergsen.
I mean, kind of, yeah, but when
Doublelift.
you,
I was for the record. I was not against Doublelift and Bjergsen last year. I'm just saying they were old veterans.
yeah, but I just think that this team is just going to suffer purely because they have a lot of young players on the team. Now, I guess what I would say is they have one of the better junglers in the league who I think can help this team function and learn and sort of grow. But I think a similar situation could occur on this team like Immortals where you're going to have River going to be asked to do a lot of things on this team, we have no idea how Sniper is going to look. I think, everyone's happy that he's in the LCS and that he finally has a chance to show how good he can be.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some growing pains with that. Unfortunately, Quid was one of the worst players in LCS last split, and that is just a
Hmm.
fact. And I know there's
Yep.
people who didn't necessarily buy that, and there were some people saying that was sort of being blown too far into, proportion. But dude, he was one of the
No, he
worst
was
players in
bad.
LCS last year, and that is just a fact.
He was bad, but there were something like if we're gonna give benefit of the doubt to APA for being thrown in the last second, you kind of do the same thing
I I don't know.
with
I
Quid.
I wouldn't agree.
Quid was thrown
I
in.
wouldn't say that.
Well, hold on. Let me finish.
Quid was a planned replacement.
Let me finish. I was going to say Quid didn't play much longer than APA did because Quid came over. I remember them saying that he didn't really have time to scrim with them at all, so he was thrown in kind of last second.
Uh,
Um,
I don't want to cut you off, but 100 Thieves did boot camp in Korea for like a month before the season
I
with
thought that they
Quid.
weren't able to do that.
No, but 100 Thieves was boot camping in Korea when Quid
And
got there.
you're positive about
Yes,
that?
I'm positive.
I had it so okay, so that does change my mind a little bit because I had it in my mind that Quid had come over and that they weren't boot camping in Korea and that they didn't have time for scrims.
No,
That's what my memory was telling me.
no.
And so I was kind of sympathetic to that because that is like, still difficult to be
It
thrown in.
is it
Honestly,
is
I would
true
still
that he
argue.
came it is true that he came late to the start of LCS because he missed the first week because Nuke Duck played and then he played directly into week 2, but
Okay.
he had the whole off season prior knowing that he was going to be on the team, practicing with the team, whereas that I would say vastly differs to the APA situation where he just got thrown in as the backup, with 2 weeks
Yeah,
left to go.
those are 2 different situations. I'll give you that. I didn't recognize how different they were. With that said, I still don't think that it's the easiest situation being thrown into a new team regardless, because you probably didn't speak much English, I'm guessing. So that's something else that you need to be a little bit sympathetic to, but at the same time, if a guy's not playing well, you just gotta say it. He wasn't playing well.
Yeah.
Um, maybe an off season being able to, have more time over here, maybe that helps him. I don't know. I don't know if he was playing over here, if he was playing in Korea or whatever. But I do think that I like giving chances to players for like more than one split, especially on a team that was such a disaster. Anyways, like he was not the only bad one on that team, right?
Mhm.
Um, why the hell can't I think of his name?
Closer.
Closer. Yeah, Closer was running it down. I kept thinking Crawl Closer. Yeah, he was running it down too. And so, like, honestly, River upgrade. And
Yeah.
the reason why I still had 100 Thieves at the bottom was because even though River was fucking awesome last year, I do remember the year before that when River was stuck on bad teams and it didn't matter how that he was a good jungler. Like, remember when he was on Dig? Like, it didn't matter that River was good. That whole team just sucked anyways. So it's like I don't. It gave me similar vibes. It gave me flashbacks to like, oh god,
Yeah.
River's going to be stuck on another team. There's some hype behind Meech though. Apparently Meech is pretty good. Didn't
Yeah, I
watch
mean
much,
he
but
was the previous ESG AD carry, so
yeah, he's another guy like, to keep your eye on. So there's like some exciting players. It's just like you're really hoping that they pan out for this team
it's just
to
going to take some time,
succeed.
I think, for this team. I think this is a team that everyone has to recognize that they are not going to be good to start. I mean,
Mhm.
if that, who knows, maybe they will be good. Like, I don't know, maybe they're 4-0 to start the first 2 weeks. Like that could happen, but it would not surprise me whatsoever to see this team be a bottom dweller this split.
Okay. One last question. Who do you think is the most likely team to just blow it all up?
Okay, well,
Like, who's going to be the first team? Who's going to be the first team to be like, this shit ain't working, and they go get somebody else?
I'm gonna take Immortals out of the equation because they turn over their whole
Why?
roster basically on a 6 month to 1 year basis.
That's the perfect reason to go with Immortals.
Nah, because they don't count because they do it every year. But if I actually did have to pick one, I would actually pick Team Liquid because I think this thing crashes and burns, and APA looks bad, and Yan looks bad, and Core JJ is not as good as he once was. I could see them. I could see TL blowing it up.
This might age poorly, but I'm going to say TL sticks together, at least through all of spring. I don't think they're going to be the first team to start making changes. Hopefully that doesn't age poorly. I have faith in Team Liquid keeping the squad together. I was going to go with Immortals, but now you feel like,
Well, I mean,
oh,
I
wow.
I guess in my mind they don't really count because they do it every year. Like they blow up the roster every year. What does it matter?
But by the end of the year, so wait, are you saying they're going to blow it up by like the end of summer or by the start of summer, end of spring? Like,
Oh, I thought you were saying like blow it up like in between splits. Like spring goes poorly. Like who could blow
no,
it up?
I mean they fucking mental boom and someone needs to find a new something else. Who's the most likely team to boom first?
Oh, the most likely team to boom first.
Yeah, for me it was Immortals.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe you go with like it could be FlyQuest. Like I don't know.
Yeah, things aren't meshing
Bwipo,
with
Bwipo and
FlyQuest.
Inspired seem like pretty strong personalities. So
Yeah, that's true.
like
Okay, what happens first? Reckless is kicked from T1 Academy or an LCS team implodes?
an LCS team will implode without a doubt. So
You think Reckless is going the whole split with T1 Academy?
I mean,
You made me think about it earlier when you brought it up.
why would they sign him in the first place if they weren't going to keep him past one split? I guess is what I would
Wouldn't you
say
say
to
that
that.
about everyone though? Wouldn't you say that about every
No,
player?
because
Like, why
it's
would
a
you sign them
because
if you
it's
think they're
because
gonna?
he's on an academy squad, which is like aimed to be developmental.
I know that's the weird thing is that Reckless is not a developmental player. It's just weird
He
to me.
technically is because he's on a new role, but
I guess. Yeah. I'm not hoping for it to happen for the record. It's just you mentioned it before we started recording and I was just like, "Oh yeah." And it got me thinking. I was just like, "That's so strange." Um anything else, Jinter, on these teams?
no, I think that does it for the power rankings.
Okay. Let's touch on the Saudi stuff. Do you want to give a TLDR of
Yeah, I guess this news came out about a week ago now to this point, but Jacob Wolf, funnily enough, he's back in the league scene. I don't know, like he took like a 3 year hiatus where Jacob Wolf just like wasn't a part of the league scene, but now he's kind of back, like reporting on things and dropping his 2 cents here and there. But he came out with a really good article actually, outlining how there's going to be an esports World Cup that's is getting held in what's oh fuck, I even forgot. I even looked this up on how to pronounce it. Like Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I believe is
yeah.
the correct way to pronounce it. But
Mhm.
they're holding an 8 week event in Saudi Arabia that is apparently going to feature the largest prize pool in esports history. That's going to feature a bunch of different games. It's going to be all the major gaming titles and whatnot. But there is going to be League of Legends in it, and there is going to be 2 teams from every major region that attend this event. Now, it wasn't specifically stated if there are going to be other regions additionally that get some invites as well. But from what we
Mhm.
do know is that at the very least, there's going to be 2 teams from every major region. And more importantly, it's apparently stated that Riot is not going to be choosing these teams. So maybe that means that the tournament organizers get to choose the teams. Maybe there's some sort of qualification based on your place in the standings or performance in a certain split or what it may be. I'm not exactly sure. We don't know, but I guess the point is that 2 teams are going, and it's not necessarily Riot who's choosing those teams.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just start by saying like this is disappointing. I know that's not a hot take. I know a lot of people have said just as much. For me, it's really simple. It's like, do we want esports to be that? Like, I think even Travis mentioned this on Hotline League last week that like Riot gives all the individual teams money every year to be able to support them so that they're not like, uh, clinging at scraps. Like, it just feels so shit to me if all the teams sell out for an organization that is clearly just not good at respecting people's rights and just respecting people. Obviously, they don't have a good record when it comes to the LGBTQ community or when it comes to how they treat women. Like that shit, like it's so bad too because Riot has a bad history of that as well. There was like lawsuits, and not just Riot, but even Blizzard as well. Like the gaming community already has, like to me, a really big scar when it comes to how women have been treated. And now we're just gonna take the money from this country, from this government that is um clearly not respecting women's rights. It's so sad, and I know there's gonna be a bunch of people that are like, "You would take the money if it was you in this situation." Well, honestly, no, I don't think I would. Honestly, I really don't.
I would.
If I'm a fucking company like Riot Games that already has billions and billions of dollars, I don't need a little bit more from Saudi Arabia. Like it's just so cringe.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult because yes, obviously the people and the organizations that are going to be associated with this esports World Cup are not the greatest people, and but the problem is in the current esports climate that we're in right now, uh, money is a bit sparse. So it's not surprising at all to see Riot um basically take the money, because I think that's kind of what everybody's under the assumption, that Riot's just taking the money. So
Yeah, but
it's
that's my point. Riot doesn't need the money. This is Riot Games. This company has fucking money.
I mean, I guess I would say, if the statement of Riot Games has money and like that was a true statement, then the LCS wouldn't be in the predicament that it is right now. 'Cause if they'd be more willing to shell out a lot more money to improve the league and do other things, like for
What do you
example,
mean?
well, this thing right here, a third party tournament organizer. Riot has previously blocked all of these third party tournaments from happening. And it's basically because of their own decisions that they've ended up doing this tournament. I kind of think like,
Yeah, but that's so for me, that speaks to even more why this is so shit that like they always said for so long they don't want third parties doing tournaments, and all of a sudden a big bag of money comes their way and now they're cool with it. And the other part that I don't understand is you said something like Riot isn't funding. What did you say? Something like Riot is not.
no,
I don't know what you said
I
exactly.
just used your statement saying like Riot has a shit ton of money. I was like, well, if that was like that was kind of true, and they would be more willing to use that money, like the LCS wouldn't be where it is right
Yeah, so
now.
that's what you said, right? You said they would be more willing to use money. They do use the money. They just revamped the whole damn studio. And yes, I know it's shared with Valorant, but they do put money towards that. They give the teams $2.5 million every year to be able to support their team. Like Riot is giving out the money to support the league. The league isn't like popping off right now because of sponsors. The league's got money to feed all these teams because they're Riot Games and they have money. Like that's why the leagues can still be supported, is because they believe in esports in the long term and because they do have the money to support it. They don't need like the scene is not going to die just because they don't take Saudi money. Trust me, it's fine. That's
Yeah, I
what
mean,
upsets me.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think it's also, they probably recognize that it's going to be a lot of exposure for, their various games, because it's going to be this tournament, this esports World Cup that's going to happen. It's not just League of Legends. There's going to be presumably Counter Strike. There's Call of Duty. There's all these other games. For people who don't know, this is basically the rebranded Gamers 8 tournament that they ran at
Hmm.
the same time last year, which had a big CS:GO tournament. It wasn't a major, but it was basically a major in terms of the format, the elite teams that they brought out and whatnot. But it wasn't labeled as a major, but it kind of felt like that. And I think it's going to have that same exact feel, next year. It's going to be a stacked tournament,
I just want to
and
say
to that
someone.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm not that excited for the tournament, but I'll get to that in a sec. I just want to. The one comment on YouTube says like Riot has money, but the teams are broken. Like that's why I bring up that Riot gives them all $2.5 million every year so that they can support, and they're not losing a shit ton of money every year on esports. They're losing money on their own, sure, but Riot is what helps them and keeps them afloat, right? So like, I don't think it's like, um, all these teams are going to go under if Riot because Riot does help them. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
don't think
and
that this
um,
Saudi money is absolutely needed, and I just wish that people would kind of have a little bit of a spine and like just stand up for what's right. Like it's just clearly wrong to me. To me, and I'm not saying everyone else to have that needs to have that opinion. It's just very much. That's the way I feel about it. So it's
Yeah.
just depressing to me.
I guess one last thing that I had, because we were talking about third party stuff just before we got slightly sidetracked. And it was reported in this Jacob Wolf article that it said a person being a very high up person, a person from Riot said that they were in discussion with tournament organizers for the licensing of third party events. Riot said that its esports team initiated the assessment of additional third party events after witnessing the success of the 2022 Asian Games that
Yeah.
didn't end up getting held in 2022 and 2023 just before Worlds happened. But it's just once again like I don't want to get on the negative side of things here, but similar to how we were talking about the LCS, it surprises me that Riot all of a sudden now was like, whoa, having other people run tournaments can be cool if we allow them to do that. That's so surprising.
Mhm.
It's like, dude, like everybody, like when this Mr. Beast tournament was going on, everybody, it was known that LCS players were wanted for it and to get a lot of people and content creators. Like it was known that that was going to be the goal for it. Riot blocked that. It wasn't as good because of that. There was all these previous IEM events that they did in 2012 or 2011, basically up until 2017. There was IEM Katowice that they ran a bunch of times. Now, I don't teams necessarily weren't the biggest fan of that because of the travel and the scheduling implications. And I think that the large prize pool solves some of that. It gives teams a reason to fly out to these events that are not the normal schedule for them during the regular season. So I would say that, you know, even if it's Saudi money, like the money is a good thing for players and teams to get more involvement with more international tournaments and everything like that. But just the fact that they needed the 2022 Asia Games to display the upside and the popularity of third party tournaments is just once again baffling to me.
Yeah, and I'm not against third party tournaments. It's just clearly they decided to bend the rules once they got a big bag of money coming their way. That's what tells me that there's just something wrong with it. It just irks me a little bit. And like I'm not against players and teams getting more money for doing third party tournaments. It's just like you said, there's been other third party tournaments where these opportunities have existed, but Riot's just clearly always ignored them because there was no benefit to Riot themselves. And that's really, really disappointing. Um was there anything else that you wanted to say? I did want to get back to the interesting part, or you said that you were interested for the tournament. Was there anything on like the, I don't know, the morality or ethics side of it that you wanted to
Oh
talk
no,
about?
no, I mean
So
everyone
I
knows
was
it's
just
not the
going to say,
greatest.
yeah, I was just going to say that like, I'm not that excited for this tournament, mostly because it's right after MSI, and I think MSI is kind of the same thing. There's two teams from LCK, LPL, LCS, LEC. Isn't that MSI that happens like a month before this?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of the timelines. MSI is in what, May, and this
May
will
or
be in
something?
July. Was that 2 months? I guess it's only 2 months. Huh? I
Or
mean, I don't
June or
know.
something.
I mean, I
Like to
guess
me, it's just like they're just doing MSI over again, except maybe with not the best teams because some teams might decline to go or whatever it is. I don't know exactly yet. But you get that's why for me, I'm not that excited about it. But maybe there's something I'm missing.
I don't know. I don't know. I think opposite to you. I think I've always been a proponent of more international tournaments, and I think I'm excited for all international tournaments that happen. And a lot of that is just because, like, what if like let's say MSI happens, and just for example, T1 wins, and everybody expects
Hmm.
T1 to be this dominant team, and then you're sort of midway through the summer regular seasons for most leagues. You then go off to this tournament, and guess what? Now T1 is not the dominant team. And like maybe the LDC or the LPL sort of rises up and kind of stakes some claim to like being a top team or a top league and stuff like that. So I just think that it gives way for more narratives to be built up going into Worlds than it does maybe discredit MSI, I would say.
Maybe it just seems to me it's so weird that they're doing a tournament right after. That seems to be pretty similar, if you ask me. But
Well, I
I
mean,
guess I should refrain and
it's
wait and see what the teams are going to be before having more
well,
of a strong
I
opinion.
think
I
I
guess.
think most importantly, this will be done by a third party tournament organizer. They get to do whatever the hell they want with it.
Yep.
It could be all double elimination best of fives. It could be whatever people want it to be exactly. So I think
The other thing.
everybody's always talked about how they want a more expanded worlds playoff format. I know that they did some changes to that. I guess they didn't do any changes to the playoff format, but they did to the group stage format. But maybe we're going to see a revamped best of five double elimination bracket stage, and that's what everyone's been asking for. And maybe if Riot views that and sees that as a success, they'll implement that for the upcoming worlds.
Yeah, that would be an upside. Again, to me, it just doesn't have to be done with the Saudis, but I mean, whatever. There's something else that you said that stood out to me. Oh my god, my brain's all jumbled. I'm rusty, Jinter.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, I guess I'll just have to wait and see who the teams are going to be. I guess mostly because that's going to change the feel around the tournament a lot. Oh, the one thing that you did say was people want more international events, and like, yeah, I think that a lot of people have asked for more international tournaments. I just think when people are asking for them, they're usually thinking it will be with the best teams from all the regions, like MSI or Worlds. Whereas like this tournament is not a guarantee of that, right? So let's say Dig and Immortals do get sent to this team because they're the only two LCS teams that want to go, then what, this tournament's
Well,
way less interesting. Now,
I
I'm not
mean, I
saying that's
don't.
likely to happen,
Yeah, I don't
but
think that
like
is going to happen at all.
my point being that if there's not that many teams that want to go to this thing because they decline or for whatever reason, like it could really make or break if this would be an interesting tournament, right?
I guess, yeah, but I mean, I'm working under the expectation that it's going to be top teams from every region that are going to these.
Maybe we'll have to wait and see. Anything else on it?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, I guess my short opinion is that I hope esports doesn't become just a sellout for shit organizations or governments that just don't treat people well. But I know a lot of people get bored of that take. I understand. I know a lot of people want them to take the money because the money's needed right now, and I respect those opinions. I just respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
Uh,
The only thing that I really have to say about that is I think Riot unfortunately just did it to themselves with all of the poor decisions that they've made over a number of years when it comes to either making changes or not making changes. They're now just at a point where it's like money is going to solve these problems.
yeah, I think
Like
I agree with
money
that.
solves every problem, and if you can't solve any problems without money, then you're pretty shit decision maker. Then I would say.
Yeah. Um, Better things to talk about would be week one predictions. That'll get me less
Uh
doomer
huh.
and
Uh
sad.
huh.
Oh boy, Jinter.
Yeah, we have. I apologize. There's some slight scuffed predictions here, just because I forgot to screenshot the matches. So bear with me. It's a slight scuff, but
Oh no.
we got it here. Um,
Um.
Number one,
So.
for before we do any of this,
Uh huh.
they've broken common LCS tradition of having the
Mhm.
championship rematch be the first match of the day. The
Yeah,
first
my
match is
thoughts.
not the C9 Energy rematch. Why? Why? This is a
I
bad
I
change.
have a theory. I have a theory. I think it's in case LEC overlaps. They don't want people that are watching LEC to wait to watch LCS. So if the LEC goes a little bit long one day, it'll be TL 100 Thieves, and then after that, LEC should be done, and then NRG C9 would be the. That's a guess.
I guess
I don't know what the other reason would be. It's odd otherwise.
if you're making the argument that you're worried about the overlap, then why are you putting the broadcast in a position to be overlapped in the first place? Then is what I would say to that.
Because people want it on weekends.
No, but then why aren't we just running it 1 hour later? Why is it not just starting one
I
hour later?
don't know because this is the best time for people to watch. I don't know.
Oh, back to that data we're talking about. Yeah, is that the data
Yep.
talking right there?
Yes. Data talk.
Sick, real sick. Anyways, predictions for the matches. First match, Team Liquid versus 100 Thieves. I'm going Team Liquid.
Yeah. TL.
Championship rematch, Energy versus Cloud9. Our power rankings would indicate that we both have to take Cloud9 here, or else we're big fucking liars.
Yeah, I am gonna go Cloud9, but this is one of those things where it's like NOG's played together. They didn't change much of their team. They changed one player, whereas like Cloud9's got a few new pieces. I guess just two actually.
Yeah, and one of them kind of was already on the team, so it's like 1.5 ish.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Cloud9.
Next up, FlyQuest versus Shopify. Now,
You're gonna go Shopify. You're gonna go the
I
upset. I
am.
know it.
Yes, I
Yep.
am.
I'm gonna go FlyQuest.
I've been
I
trolled by the
respect the
scuff.
upset here, and again, we talked about how FlyQuest might not be that good. Like they could fall apart. But yeah, I could see the. I respect going for the upset,
But
but I'm going FlyQuest.
in LCS tradition, we also have Immortals versus Dignitas being the last day of the
Oh
of
God,
the
yeah.
match, because it's the, I don't know, whatever the opposite of the Super Bowl is. It's this. It's whenever Immortals plays Dignitas, because this is the prediction swinger on this show. Because more often than not, one of us is a Dig believer and the other one is Immortals believer when these two teams end up facing each other, and then we stick with it the whole year because we're just stubborn like that, and then one
So
person's
if I,
up 4-0. Yeah, I'll take the
yeah,
opposite. I'm down. I'll take the opposite of whatever you
we're gonna
say.
We're gonna swap this year. Last
Yeah.
year I kept going dig over and over again. This time I go
Oh yeah, I'm
immortals.
down. Okay,
All right,
I'm on dig side of things now.
nice,
Yeah, I
good
like it.
coin flip. Okay,
Okay.
beautiful.
Yeah, sorry. The scuff is now showing. Sunday matches. First one, Team Liquid versus Shopify. I'm gonna go with Team Liquid though. Still, unfortunately, as much as I want to pick Shopify.
Hmm. Can I see Shopify taking? I can see them taking it. I'm still gonna go TL. I think it's a safer pick.
Next up, Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves. I'm going Cloud9.
Cloud9,
Immortals versus FlyQuest. FlyQuest.
FlyQuest,
NRG versus Dig. NRG.
NRG. Okay, so we got all the same on the
Hmm.
second day, but
Yeah.
not the first. Okay, so this is our eighth split doing predictions.
7, I think. If you're
Nope, because we started in summer
yeah,
of 2020, and then we did
okay, yeah.
then we
Keep
did
going. Keep going. Oh, this
then we
is
did
the. Oh,
spring
sorry.
summer.
This is the
Yeah,
eighth. Sorry, I misinterpreted. I meant like I thought you said
yeah.
we've done 8 splits, but no, this is the.
No,
Sorry, my
keep
apologies.
going, keep going. It was
Sorry,
all in my
I
face.
was, I was.
I am up 4-3, and I need to remind you that for now I have superiority.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Okay. Quick news.
Yeah, we got a little bit of quick news. We kind of already touched on a little bit at the beginning with the who's the main character of the LCS, but Doublelift he announced his re-retirement. It seems like much more of an official retirement, just considering the situation where it was obviously previously with TSM and there was a bunch of roster drama, sword art thing, yada yada. We don't have to get back into that, but there was like a long 10 or I guess it was almost 15-minute video that he released, pretty similar to the Bjergsen retirement video, where basically just talked about that playing competitive League of Legends is no longer the priority in his life. He's getting older, he wants to start a family, and he wants to keep streaming. And I'll be tuning into the co-stream, so I'm down.
Yeah, I'm really happy about the co-stream thing. That's very good. I'm looking forward to the monkey theorem, the monkey the monkey typewriter thing discussions. Those I'm looking forward to. I do think it's a big hit when you lose double lift, but that's no hot take. Everyone knows that. This is
Uh,
more of just a salute double lift, and at least he's not leaving the scene completely.
yeah. Next up, some DSG news, because I'll say this again, but DSG is like an honorary LCS team at this point. They will be in the LCS in the next 2 years. Mark my words.
Yeah, the
Um,
interesting thing is that they got tenacity. He
yeah,
unretired really quickly.
yeah. Man, again, without getting too negative, just what a horrible decision Tenacity made. Like, just up and
Without getting negative
like,
instantly, this was
like
terrible. What are
just
you
a
talking
horrible
about?
decision to just like I'm gonna retire for half a split and be do content creation and then like unretire after you know
No, okay, so sure, but something to understand is that like it's hard to know what you want to do. How old is Tenacity? Like 19 or some shit?
okay, I guess just I don't know, maybe he's a young guy, but I guess just to counter your argument, he played in an amateur and 100 Thieves Academy for like 2.5 years up until he debuted in the LCS.
Maybe he
You're
thought.
telling me he got 6 months in the LCS and was like, oh yeah, fuck it, I'm cool, I'm done now.
I don't think it's, oh, I don't want to play pro, but maybe it was, oh, I just think streaming would be really cool and I want to try streaming, and then tried it and was maybe like, I like playing competitive more. Like it could be just that simple.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know how old he is, if he's 19 or 20. Like 19 and 20-year-olds are stupid. We've all been there. I don't know about you when you were 19 or 20, Jinter, but I was a fucking moron. And
I
I
was
could
a
not decide
beast.
what I
Okay.
could not decide ever what the hell I wanted to do. So I don't blame him if he was just following the Blue Jay footsteps, just like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, maybe I want to do that. Maybe I want to do this. Let him do his thing and figure out what he wants to do. Anyways, I'm happy that Tenacity's back in the scene. I hope he makes it back to the LCS.
I mean, I guess he
And
has. I guess he kind of has the best of both worlds because like DSG is kind of like a content team in org anyway. So maybe he's working that angle.
okay, Scott, shut up, you bother me. That's what you get.
Yeah. I guess the rest of the roster is it. The roster is Tenacity, Perry, Young, Manui, and Poom. Don't know anything about Manui, but Young was obviously the mid laner who was on DSG last year. Played a couple games for Golden Guardians in the LCS. Poom, everyone knows who Poom is, former CLG support. Played a little bit for Dig last year also, and then Perry was the Cincinnati Fear jungler last year, who actually Cincinnati Fear was a pretty decent team in the NACL. So Seems like DSG has once again put together a pretty strong roster that's probably going to contend for NACL champions.
Do you know if Manui is French?
No idea.
You wouldn't happen to know that.
Yeah, no idea.
If he's Canadian, he might be French. Just because I know Poom's French and Minri is like midnight, kind of, sort of. Might be a French bot lane. That's where I'm going with this.
Sure,
I don't know.
we'll go with that.
What's next?
Next up, the LCSPA put out some announcement a couple days ago saying that they had basically redone their entire executive committee, which previously was manned by Darshan, which he
Hmm.
announced that he stepped away from that role late at the end of last year and put out his kind of like official retirement from League of Legends on Twitter also. But the
Hmm.
new executive committee, the president's Wild Turtle. That's pretty cool.
President Turtle.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I mean
I don't.
that's a player that I definitely have confidence in being the head of the LCSPA as one who's been in the league since its inception and is one of the more one of the older LCS veterans, which kind of just I would kind of assume means he has a good head on his shoulders, and he's been around the block, so I feel like he's gonna have the best interests for all LCS players at heart.
Yeah, I don't know like what players would be good or not good for being on the LCSPA. Like it's kind of whatever to me. I just really think it's cool to say President Turtle. I think I'm down with President Turtle
And then
because I think
The VPs are Core JJ, Vulcan, Fudge, and Armeo.
yeah, cool. Like I don't really got any take to add to that, honestly. If this wouldn't surprise me if this was like voted by the players and everyone was just like Wild Turtle, you're my president. Like he would win that vote.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, and new cinematic. Let's talk about the cinematic. It was fucking awesome. Uh what did you like about the cinematic? The league cinematics we're talking about, obviously.
It was of standard expectations. It was a good cinematic.
I agree.
I didn't think it was anything more than that. I don't like. I think that people were overhyping the cinematic a little bit because
Do you think they're
obviously people
starved
were.
for one?
Yes, because everyone was upset that there was no league cinematic going into 2023. They released some dog shit like fairy flying through the woods of Summoner's Rift in this like high pitched narrative voice. Like, oh yeah, it was fucking trash, man. It was fucking trash that last
It
year's
was.
cinematic.
It definitely was. Okay, but so I agree with you. Like as far as like the cinematics that they've done over the years, like I actually still think the call is better. But
Yeah,
like
that
this one
one's
was still
better.
great.
Awaken was
This one was
better. What
I
other
think I agree,
ones?
but the reason why this one to me hits so different is because of the changes that they made to the lore, where they're like, yeah, everything we've done in the past is like no longer, like canon, but like everything that comes out now is canon. So like I looked at this cinematic through like a completely different lens than I would the other ones. Do you remember when they said like,
I
hey,
do.
everything
Yep.
is canon now? That's what made this one way more hype to me. It wasn't that the cinematic itself was way better, even though it was still great. It's not that it was way better than all the other ones. It's that it meant more to me. I was like, oh shit. Like Yasuo is actually going to get old and still be fucking, slicing people up kind of sorta. You know?
Yeah, I guess from that aspect, definitely was good. I'm not, as you know, I'm not much of a lore person myself, but that stuff is interesting. But I just think that
Aatrox was scary,
I
man.
just think that, as you said, people were starved for a cinematic, and that's why it got as much attention as it did, because it's like the viewership of it like was going crazy. Like it's at like some absurd amount of views. It's surpassed a lot of the other ones, but there's other previous cinematics that have been just as good, if not slightly better than this one. And the ones I would point to were The Call was better, Awaken better. Awaken's the best cinematic easily, in my
But
opinion, I
like
would
with
say.
those
So
ones, they set the bar so high because they're also so good. Like to me, it's very simple. They did a good job. I'm happy. Like it
they
doesn't
met the
to
bar.
me. Not everyone has to be like the best thing ever. Like
Wouldn't you say
the
then it's
bars.
overhyped? It met the bar?
No, I don't think it's overhyped.
Okay.
Again, for the reasons that I mentioned,
Okay,
that
yeah,
like
that's fine.
it's still really good, and also it means more. So like the fact that it's for sure canon means it deserves hype, even if the cinematic itself may not has been as good as like the call, for example.
Completely fair.
Was there one champion that you were like, this is the best one? Like, who was the coolest champion? Was it Yas? You're gonna say Yasuo.
Yeah, is it bad if I say I couldn't give a fuck?
Yeah.
I really couldn't care.
Then
If anything,
maybe
I'll tell you that the Camille Jin shit from Awaken was like the most baller shit ever. So, but there was
hmm.
nothing from this cinematic that was like it beat that. Like the Camille Jin thing from Awaken, like that was some of the most baller shit I've seen. and
There's so
nothing
many
nothing
of them
met
that were
that.
so cool
Nothing met
though.
that.
I just thought Aatrox was really cool. That guy was scary. Big ass Aatrox looked beast. But like other ones from the past, like when Caitlyn's shooting Urgot was really cool. When Lux does her big ulti, I don't remember. I don't remember which one was a part of which video now because I've watched them so many times. They all just kind of blend together now. But like all the cinematics are so fucking good, man.
Yeah, you're a cinematic guy. You
I
love
am a
it.
cinematic guy. Yeah, that's true.
If people
I'm a
couldn't
big time
tell, I
cinematic.
couldn't care less, but I do like them. Don't get me wrong. Like there could be
Couldn't
no
care
there
less.
there could be
Unbelievable.
no cinematic and it would not like if Riot was like, "Yep, no more cinematics." I'd be like, "Okay, cool." If anything, it was just disappointing the fact that they released a cinematic last year and pretended that it was like of the same quality as all the other ones.
No,
That's the most egregious thing that they did.
so I agree that it was really bad, but you've lost your goddamn marbles if you're saying you don't care if there's no more cinematics. We gotta have more cinematics. We gotta have more.
It would not matter.
Terrible take, JNT. Okay, that's it for this episode. Left on JNT's awful cold ass take.
Yeah, I apologize.
Um,
I was kind of the one driving the negativity in this episode. I
uh,
apologize.
whatever, dude. Who cares?
It
Thanks
stems
for those that
from
are
the
sticking
god
around.
awful New York Jets season I was forced to watch.
Oh,
I'm
you
still pissed about it. I
son.
had to mention it.
He'll never let go.
I won't. Never.
Okay, another reminder to subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment. For all the bad takes that we've had this episode, let us know about them. We'll read them.
Yeah, give us an earful. Or
What else should we tell people to do? We have a Discord. We
okay.
got
If
we got a
anything, yeah,
long year ahead of
we've
us.
always said join the Discord. It'll anything you can always ask us any questions. We will answer it. We're on Discord, all the time, pretty much. That's also where
Link
you'll
will be in the
find out.
description.
That's where you'll find out when the episodes are going live and if there are going to be any last minute changes to the schedule. And if we figure out what our consistent schedule is, you'll probably hear it on Twitter or Discord first. So find us at those places. Links will always be in the description.
Yeah. Yep. And if you're late coming to the live show, timestamps will be in the thing as well. Jinter's usually
And
pretty damn
the
good at getting
VOD
to
will probably
those.
be up in an hour or so.
Yeah. Okay. Should be live again next time, Sunday night. Probably we're gonna aim for around 11 o'clock, and yes, that might change over time, but we'll figure that out. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you guys next week. This has been episode 148 of the Clown Fiesta podcast.